Okay, welcome everyone to tonight's meeting, April 8th of the Conservation Commission. And I'd like to welcome all of you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the meeting. I have to read something before it starts. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2022 and H.262 as amended by S.2506, this meeting public hearing will be conducted by a remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so in the following manner. For a Zoom meeting, see connection information below to join. For video conference or by calling in by cell or by phone. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Topsfield webpage at topsfield-ma.gov. You may also reach out to conservation at topsfield-ma.gov or by calling in 978-887-1510. For information and assistance, please, no in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, and public participation in any public hearing will be conducted during this meeting shall be by remote means only. And we'd like to start tonight's meeting with a request for an RDNI for 2026-03 for 31 Windsor Lane, map 27, lot 27 for Rosenthal, with a request to remove a tree and cut a stump. Is someone here from the Rosenthals, or are you going to tell us about it, Jackie? Or
I don't see anyone here, so I'll tell you about it.
okay.
I'll just pull up the photos. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, it's telling me my Dropbox storage is full. Just a moment. Does anyone else have the Dropbox open? Oh, I got it. Just wouldn't let me show it
That's
because
my
my storage
nemesis.
was full.
No, yeah.
Okay. Here it is. So this is at 31 Windsor Lane. The applicants are proposing to cut 2 leaning trees within the riverfront area. The trees are leaning over the pool, and the arborist letter stated that they're leaning over the pool and weighed down with vines. The small trees along the right side fence are planned to be topped, and the other trees to the right of the house are to be pruned. I guess if no one's here to speak on this one, I would just recommend that we require replacement tree plantings for any trees that are being removed. And I did want to ask more about the trees that are being pruned and to what extent they're being pruned, because I didn't get that information on site. But I think if they're being, let's see, this is what the arborist said. So they're fairly small trees that are being topped along the fence. Tree removal for the 2 in back. So I think if the pruning is more than just minor, I would say they need more replacement plantings. But I think we can approve it with replacement plantings subject to my approval.
Okay.
How many, 4 or 2?
I think at least 2, but
Coming out.
depending on how much pruning they're doing, I don't know if we should require more.
But I guess we don't really know because they're not here, right?
Right.
So from the picture, it looks like there's a body of water behind the trees, but for kind of jurisdictional confirmation, is this in the buffer zone? What's the wetland status of the trees?
So these are within riverfront area.
Okay,
It is that body of water that you can see back there.
okay,
That is behind the leaning trees. And then the fence is along the sidewall.
okay.
And they wanted to cut the stumps low, but not remove them.
So, I assume you could check with them to find out more about the pruning, whatever they have in mind, and add a tree if you need to. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? We have motion then?
I can make a motion that we issue a determination of negligible impact for RDNI 2026-03 at 31 Windsor Lane with the standard conditions, including the requirement for 2 native replacement trees to be planted within the jurisdictional area within 6 months for the 2 trees that are removed. And that the pruning and or topping be conducted as proposed, but upon prior consultation with Jackie before starting the work. Does that work?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
And how do we vote? Dodd Shamroth, aye?
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Ben Kayla, aye.
Good. Next, we have an RDNI 2026-2004, 22 Forest Road, map 39, lot 55 for Roach. A request to remove 2 trees. Is anyone present from them?
I don't think anyone's here, but I can speak on this one.
Okay.
So you may recall we recently approved a different RDNI for tree removal at this site. Previously, there was an order of conditions for an addition that went right up to the tree line. There was previously a hazardous tree removed that would have been right on the area where the addition was being added. And these 2 additional trees, I think when the arborist went out there to look at the other tree, which was very obviously in poor health, they determined that 2 other trees were also hazardous and would need to be removed. I can pull up the photo of this. Let's see. So you can see I drew arrows pointing to the 2 trees.
Yeah.
And the arborist noted that these 2 white pine trees have large amounts of deadwood in the upper canopy, have been dropping limbs, and the construction that's proposed right in front of them will affect their root systems. So since they're both not dead, the replacement tree plantings would be required in accordance with the tree policy.
Seems straightforward. Sometimes you propose
Reasonable.
these projects and you don't go all the way with the tree removal, and then they realize they got to do more.
Right.
So
So you want to make a motion, Jen?
I'll make a motion unless there's any other discussion.
Nope.
No, okay. I will make a motion that we issue a determination of negligible impact for RDNI 2026-04 at 22 Forest Road with the standard conditions, including the requirement for 2 native replacement trees to be planted within the jurisdictional area within 6 months to replace the trees removed. The 2 trees removed.
I'll second that motion.
And how do we vote? Dodd Shamroth, aye?
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kayla, aye.
Okay. That's That's good. We'll look forward to seeing the new trees planted. Next, we have a request for an energy certificate, emergency certificate, EC 2026-01 for 22, or rather 224A Boston Street, also known as 200, can't talk tonight, 224R Boston Street, map 49, lot 43, the breach of a beaver dam.
So I'll speak to this one as well. The applicant was Sarah Stearns of Beaver Solutions, who had applied for an emergency certification on March 23rd. This property is owned by Mass Electric, and I had recently visited the site and observed flooding in the parking lot at 224 Boston Street, which is a business, due to the beaver dam at 224R Boston Street, which is the Mass Electric site. I can show you photos of what that flooding looked like. But there was equipment in the area that was flooding, and I determined it would be in the best interest of conservation if the parking area flooding could be reduced by breaching the beaver dam. Board of Health considered it a health and safety concern, and they also issued the Board of Health emergency permit. I can show you the photos of the dam. Second. Okay, so here you can see on the left side is the beaver dam. This was before issuing the emergency cert. And then on the right, you could see the flooding through this parking lot that was running down into the brook. And so on that day, March 23rd, I issued the emergency cert, but it requires the Conservation Commission to ratify the decision, even though I already issued it with my own signature, just because it was an emergency. And I did reach out to Beaver Solutions and ask them for an update, and they said they would get back to me. That was earlier this week, but I hadn't heard back. The town Public Works let me know that they did breach the beaver dam, but it was rebuilt, so they were going to breach it again. But I'm not sure if there's going to be further action required in the future, like a beaver deceiver, if this keeps being an issue, because it seems like it's a recurring issue. But just asking for approval of the emergency cert for now, or ratification of it.
Seems straightforward to me. I don't really have any questions, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
No,
Yes.
I can make a motion that we ratify emergency certification 2026-01 for Beaver Dam breach at 224R Boston Street, map 49, lot 43.
I'll second that motion.
and how do we vote? Dodge Shamrock, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kayla, aye.
Good. Well, I was there today and it was still very wet.
Beavers are tenacious.
Oh my goodness, the place was a disaster, really was. Anyway, moving on, we have two certificate of compliances for Howlett, 35 Howlett Street. It's OOC 307-04-110 and 307-04-32, both for 35 Howlett Street, map 33, lot 25, McKinnon. These folks have agreed to move on and delay their proceeding till our May 20th meeting. So we need a vote on that. They're away and they've asked to move it to May 20th.
Does it require an actual continuance, Jackie, like a vote?
I don't think it requires it, but if you feel more comfortable, it wouldn't hurt to vote on it.
Seems
Okay.
to me we've done that before. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I can make a motion that we continue the request for certificate of compliance, OOC 3070410, and also 3070432, both related to 35 Howlett Street, map 33, lot 25, to our May 20th, 2026 meeting.
I'll second that motion.
And how do we vote? Dodd Shamroth, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Van Kayla, aye.
Good. Next, we have a request to return to compliance AMEO for 2020-05 for 46 Alderbrook Drive, map 68, lot 15. It's wetlands and land management Spiriatos. I'm sorry if I killed it.
So this one, I feel like we should also, at the same time, discuss the requests for certificate of compliance at the same property, which is order of conditions 307-0844, also at 46 Alderbrook Drive.
Sure.
So both of those agenda items together.
Okay, I agree.
All right, this is Bill Manuel from Wetlands and Land Management. Please excuse my voice. I don't know why I've got some laryngitis at this time of year, but I'll work through it. If you don't mind, I'll share my screen. And the certificate of compliance, excuse me, the certificate of compliance was the first item on the agenda. That was largely an after the fact filing. They had done some replacing the pavers around the pool and some steps down to the towards the driveway before they realized that they needed a notice of intent. The only thing remaining on that to be done was install the security fence around the pool. And then the commission required that they install and maintain 11 shrubs. And that has been done. The pool, everything is stabilized. The shrubs have been in the ground for 2 seasons and they are doing well. So that part of the project is in compliance. While we were walking around, looking at the area, we did notice a couple of rusty barrels right over here that are in the woods. They were obviously there a very long time. Those were not noticed beforehand. It's kind of thick brush in there, but Jackie suggested it would be a good idea to get those out, and those have been removed. I just got back from a week off, but we can submit photographs before Jackie issues a certificate of compliance to show that they have been removed. So this project is complete and we would like to get a certificate of compliance.
Thank you. So the plans, I went back to the plan and I did, so they're, I guess, to separate the enforcement order from the order of conditions. The enforcement order is the one which required 72 plantings were on the restoration plan. This one just had 11 proposed. And I think it was 4 evergreen shrubs and the rest were not evergreen or deciduous. And there are no evergreen shrubs, but I don't think that's a problem. I think as long as there are 11 shrubs in there. I guess the only issue I noticed when looking back at the plans was that the fence on the original plan looked like it covered a smaller area. Let me see if I can show you on the screen. And then the other thing is the netting from the silt sock that needed to come out now that the work is done. And that's further down the slope. I'll show photos from the site visit to, let me see if I can find that original plan so you can see.
Jackie, I could bring that up easily enough if
Okay,
you.
if you have it.
Wrong. Hold on a second.
Oh, I just found it.
Okay,
If you,
I'll quit sharing then.
so it looked like on this plan, the new fence location was meant to be where this black line is. And so there would have been a bigger restoration area behind the fence. And then on this side, it also looked like the fence as it is now is a little further out. And then the other thing was the conservation posts were not the correct cedar posts. I don't know if you had a chance to fix that yet, Bill?
I spoke with the owner this afternoon. He was going to try to actually get those in the ground today and send a picture, but that didn't happen. So he says that he will have that done tomorrow and we can send you photographs so you can come back out to the site. There was one marker there with a plaque on it that was consistent with what Heidi allowed in the front of the property. But in this case, the order of conditions required the 4x4 post. So we need to add 2 posts and 1 more marker.
Can you speak to the fence layout being different?
It apparently strayed a little bit off of what was revised, but it is a sort of an open, sort of aluminum pickets, if you will, that are certainly not a barrier to wildlife.
But okay,
I don't
so
think. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, Ben.
I don't understand that just because I'm looking at the drawing. I'm thinking that we gained area. Or where was it supposed to be, Jackie? Sorry, I'm thinking it moved in a beneficial direction for the
No,
resource
so
area. No.
it moved so it was kind of closer to the wetland.
Okay.
And I don't know. I think maybe Dodds was on this with me, but this is like repeated issues with this property.
Definitely.
And so if I'm remembering correctly, we had issues on the front of the property, on the side lot line with all the trees that were removed. Is that correct?
You're totally correct.
Yes. Okay. The memory's not fading me. And then
No,
these folks came in, if I'm remembering correctly, and they had encroached into this back area, this resource area near the pool, and there was a dumping ground. And one of the things I specifically remember, mark my words, was saying these people need to get a fence up because we need to protect the area behind the pool because there was just this constant refusal to acknowledge these resource areas. At least that's my perception of it. So, I mean, the front thing was one issue, and I don't even think that's resolved. If I remember correctly, wasn't there a thing like the trees weren't all planted, they weren't restored?
correct.
I mean, definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, that was 2 seasons ago, and you are right. They did not put them in for a couple of seasons after the EO, but they have been in the ground for 2 seasons now.
Oh, okay, so it has that, what was that? Was that an enforcement order or was there a I can't remember, with notice of intent?
That was an enforcement order, yes.
Okay, and is that closed out at this point?
So
We're gonna
that's
talk about that
part of,
next.
Oh, okay, all
Yeah.
right. So I'm remembering correctly. I'm sorry to like derail, but the fence specifically was about trying to protect the resource area because there had been, like I said, repeated instances of not respecting the resource areas. In particular, there was that egregious one in the front, and then there was after that egregious one in the front, the secondary piece of it with the debris getting thrown back there. And so now it's like, what they have a professional, Bill. You're the professional. Why are they not able to put the stuff in where it needs to go? Like, why are we having this conversation when it's on an EO? You know, I'm confused.
I can't speak for the owners.
Okay.
Do we know
And-
how far off the fence is or no?
yeah, good question.
Sorry.
so,
No,
Well,
I mean, it's,
Yeah, at the very apex of the back of the fence, it strays about 15 feet off of the heavy black line on the approved plan. But it's just that back corner.
okay. Yeah, that seems about right from what I'm seeing, but I didn't measure it from a survey or anything.
so we don't know then how much like extra resource area has been encapsulated into this new fenced-in area, right? I don't recall if we had. I mean, I'm sure they had a restoration plan, right, with this EO.
So
Well-
the EO covered the area in front and the
Okay.
side of the house, which I can, if we want to talk about that, we can talk about that at the same time.
Yeah, I don't mean to confuse it, but I want to be
Yeah.
clear that like this is a repetition here, right? You know, and it's like that was really bad in the front, and then this came up, and now it's like we're still having issues complying, and I don't understand. You know, we're trying to figure out how do we communicate with these homeowners so that they respect the resource area.
And
You know,
Jen, I've got to say one thing. When you just showed the picture with the fence and the going down to the resource area, there were very few plantings there. If you go
Well,
back
those
to
were the
that
11 that
slide.
were required. The shrubs that you saw in the picture were required under the order of conditions, not the enforcement order.
Okay.
And there were 11 shrubs required under the order of conditions, and they have been installed.
Was that back when Heidi was on?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
Yes.
long time ago. Okay.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, they don't look like they're doing that well for how long they've been there, but I mean, it's
they're quite-
difficult to tell this time of year, so.
Yeah, they're quite vigorous. I did my inspection in October, I believe, and they're doing well.
can we pull up the drawing with the red X and the black line for the fence? I'm sorry, I'm hung up on this, but
Oh, yeah, the X's
i-
are for the conservation posts that still need to be installed.
I think Ben, I mean, are you good? Because they're totally different. Like, from
must
what's
be
in our
scales. It just looks
yeah.
it looks to me like the black line cuts through, the section of the proposed fence to me. The more I look at this drawing, the more I'm thinking that it moved in a favorable direction. I don't know why I look at this drawing and that's what I see.
I'll pull up the two. Let's see if I can pull them up side by side.
And I'm trying to reference it
Yeah,
against the
both.
24-inch tree.
Okay, I'm gonna try to pull up two tabs to see if I can show you them side by side.
Do you
Definitely
guys?
different shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're different shapes, and I think if they were a slightly different shape but the same size enclosure, it would be no problem. but it seems like it's a larger area covered than what was approved from what I can tell. So let me see if I can show you both at once. Okay, almost there.
The maybe because I was struggling with this as well, but then the one with the X's, the red X's on it, Ben, is the plan, not the as-built.
That's the approved
Correct.
plan. Yep.
So the
So is that orange line that kind of cuts at an angle by the green 24-inch tree, that was the original proposed fence line, and then you're going back to the dark black line?
No, so there's another
Okay, so
that
that's
doesn't
why I'm
have
wrong.
the as-built on it. That one, the one with the red X's.
Okay. That's why I'm confused. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. Here we go. I was struggling with it too because I'm with you. If you just look at the plan, it's like, yeah, this looks good.
Yeah.
I'll try to put them as close together as you can.
I mean, it looks like the green area
Sure.
or part of the green shaded area has been incorporated into the fenced in area.
So this was the right side of the screen is the approved plan, and the left side is the as-built plan showing the fence.
Oh, I got you. So the heavy black line is where it was supposed to go.
Mhm.
I thought that's where it was. Okay. I'm understanding now. I was
Right.
twisted.
So because there's one plan has topography was taken off the approved site plan and one is an as-built plan. The reference I used was the edge of the pool patio. And as I said, if you scale off to the heavy black line on the approved plan, it was roughly 20 feet. And if you scale to the sort of the apex of the fence, that's farthest projection out, that ends up being about 35 feet in that one corner there. So yes, that sort of point on the as-built plan was previously grass and open area. They did enclose that with the fence, and but the fence is made of it's an open sort of structure, just a narrow aluminum post, and certainly not a barrier to wildlife, and it already was a grass or disturbed area.
So I'm seeing on this side, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but at the
Yep.
bottom right, and
Yeah.
then also on this side seems to jut out more than the prior approved plan.
Yeah, which is more straight. I don't know. I mean, I think like the whole point of this was to remedy a wrong, and now it's like still wrong, you know? It's like, what are we supposed to do? It's like, why even come here if they're not ready? Because they've, and I get it, the plans change, but like the discussion literally was on these people need to put a fence in so they don't disturb any more area. Like it was to protect, like actively protect the area because they continue to do these things, and I appreciate no, I don't, at this point, it's like they know better. They've been here a couple of times. And if there was a question before they installed the fence, they knew who to call. So it's like, what are we supposed to do now?
Well, we did file this back in January, and then we got hammered with the snow. So this is our first hearing, and this is a slight deviation, and it's really going to be up to the commission to decide, given the conditions on the ground, whether this is substantial compliance or if you're going to require something else, a relocation of that fence. I don't like sitting here hearing the discussions and having this sort of pointed in my direction in the absence of the owner not being here,
Yeah.
but I would report to you that the deviation where the fence is occurred in an area that was previously maintained as lawn or disturbed area, so there wasn't any additional loss of vegetation uh, as a result of where the fence is now, and you did get the 11 mitigating shrubs that was required in the order of conditions. So beyond that, the commission will have to make a decision whether they can issue the certificate of compliance or decide that they can't.
Anyone else have more thoughts on this?
So just there's the discussion of the fence line. The silt sock needs to be removed. The barrel needs to be removed. The
So the barrels are removed.
barrels removed. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then the conservation posts need to be fixed, or
The posts need to be installed.
one type or another.
Because
Did I understand that correctly?
I think one of them, there was one marker in place of the two, but they're not on cedar posts as required. They were just on little short stakes.
Right. In the front of the property for that EO, which we'll talk about shortly, there were no specifications for the no disturb markers. It wasn't an order of conditions. It was an approval of a restoration plan. And those markers, little stakes with your typical plaque, the salamander plaque, had been installed, and Heidi had seen them. I guess she deferred because there were no specifications. The markers were there, and she didn't take issue with them for a couple of seasons that she was here. So the owner apparently thought that that was an appropriate marker, but this one has an order of conditions, and it's easy enough that he can install those two posts in a short order and put the town plaque on the top of them, and that would appropriately mark the areas for this order of conditions.
So I actually checked the order of conditions and the amended EO, and both of them required the 4-inch by 4-inch cedar posts with the setback markers on top.
we've never ever seen them on little like stakes in the ground ever. Maybe on like a tree, you might have a one-off or something, but yeah.
I can show you here. This is
Yeah.
from the
And just one other
amended
thing,
enforcement order.
The mulch sock, I didn't discuss that now because that's it was part of the EO work. So,
Okay.
but what's left of that, all the mulch in there, the straw is long since degraded, and it's just the plastic netting, and that's easy enough to pull up.
Right.
Okay. So for the sake of the certificate of compliance, what are we thinking? This is to the commission, like.
So just to be clear, the certificate of compliance deals with the installation of the fence. I just want to make sure because they're kind of lumped together on this sheet. So it's really just the fence, right?
So it was also after the fact approval of the pool, but because it was after the fact, the pool is obviously where it should be. The pool is not moved.
It wasn't the pool, it was the decking around the pool.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, the pool deck. Yeah. So that part is how it looks because it was just the as-built matches the original plan because that's what was there when the order of conditions was issued. The plantings were required as mitigation under the order of conditions. Just the 11 plantings in the back, not the 72 that were for the enforcement order.
Yeah, the enforcement order had to do with the tree removal in the front, just to be clear. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
number 70. Okay. I got
And also
confused.
cleanup of the slope going down into the wetland.
Yeah,
That's
it
the
seems
front or the
seems
back
kind of
also.
paltry. 11 shrubs seems kind of paltry, don't you think? I mean,
That's what I said.
yeah, it just seems, I mean, I recognize you know, you see this stuff plant, like they pick the smallest thing possible to replace, and I get it, that's within their, purview. But I question our thinking now. Like, I think we were really concerned about getting the fence in because we were like, okay, this will stop whatever, And so just going back thinking like, okay, um,
Yeah, I know for tree removals, like under RD&I, we require the shrubs and trees to be of a certain size. But I don't know if we required that in this case. I'm trying to, it said, as shown on the approved plan, the mitigation plantings shall be installed consisting of 4 native evergreens and 7 native deciduous shrubs. Which they all ended up being deciduous shrubs, but I don't think that's
Fine.
a big enough deal to be.
Well, there were some
a deal breaker.
rhododendrons in there too, I thought, wasn't there? Or were they all ended up being the pepper bush?
In the order, it just said the 4 evergreen and 7 deciduous. It does say that they should be 3 to 4 feet high on the plan. So I guess, I mean, they weren't 3 to 4 feet high in person.
Well, they certainly were.
Not that I saw.
Yeah. Yep, there were at least 3 and pushing 4, some of them.
I mean, the ones in front, I think some of them were 3 and 4 feet high, but not the ones in the back that were under the order of conditions.
Yeah, but we'll agree to disagree on that.
well, I mean, what is our
Do we have
options
pictures?
here?
I thought we had pictures of the shrubs in the back. Sorry.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can show you.
Yeah, there are rhododendrons in there as well.
Let's see. Sharing screen. So there's Bill's feet for scale on the left.
Nice.
And those are the shrubs.
It's
How
obviously
tall,
not.
how tall is the fence? 4 feet?
Yeah, probably 4 feet. Yep.
Okay.
I'm 5'10", so let's say the plan is held at my waist. Those are, granted, I'm a little offset from the shrubs, but once they leaf out, I mean, there's certainly the 3 to 4 foot range.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple smaller ones in there, but I think most of them, I'm not too worried about it. And they'll continue to grow. I mean, at this point, they've been in the ground for 2 years, so if they're not, they should develop into mature shrubs eventually.
Yeah, I could see these ones maybe being 3 feet, but these ones, I don't know. But, I mean, if you saw that they were alive, hopefully they grow. I think part of it's that they're all clustered together, so it makes it look like it's not that many shrubs for the area, but
I mean,
Well, I mean,
we meet the survival metrics.
They have met the survival metrics.
it didn't specifically say a percentage of survival, but it did say that the owner shall be responsible for assuring lasting integrity of vegetative cover on site, including the required mitigation plantings.
Well, I would say this is simple enough, right? I mean, I think that we do have a dispute as to whether some of these shrubs are 3 feet or not. So that's great that the homeowner installed shrubs, lots of shrubs, 11 shrubs, but maybe some of those shrubs just don't count. And so they should just go in and install the ones that meet our requirement, come back to us. And at that point, they'll have their conservation posts in, and they'll be ready to go. Maybe that's all it is at this point. And maybe I'm splitting hairs over this, but the point is that their fence is not in the right location and they might have undersized shrubs, and so maybe they can go back to the drawing board and fix that, install more shrubs that comply. and then come back to us at a different meeting. You
Yeah.
know, I
I'd
mean,
like
it's
to
like,
know the difference in
Sorry.
square feet.
Go ahead,
of-
sorry.
Sorry, like, I don't know how easy it is to do the math on how many square feet was intended to be fenced in and how many square feet is now fenced in. Just, I mean, are we talking about an extra 20 square feet here and it's really just,
Not a big
visual? Or are we talking about 300 square feet, So if that's not too difficult to do, I'd like to see that, but if it requires surveying or doing anything, then
No, it won't be difficult.
I'd appreciate that.
And I guess on that point, if we don't have dimensions, right, it's really hard to kind of keep control of the situation. So having dimensions, locating the new fence on the ground, to me, that seems important, right? So that going forward, if there's another violation, we can at least know where that fence is at this moment in time.
Yeah, so I think at this point, if we get the numbers on the delta square foot, and then if Jackie has a chance to go out there with a tape measure and count how many, well, during leaf out, they'll probably get another, potentially 3 or 4 inches of leaves. I don't know. Are those all pepper bush? So, I mean, I think as long as they're above like even 2.5 feet, they're all going to be, it's basically 3 feet. So what was it, 2 to 3 foot or 3 to 4 foot that we required?
3 to 4.
3 to 4.
Okay. So, I mean, without leaves on it, I think if it's above like 2.5 feet, then I'm honestly, I think that's starting to really split hairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there are outstanding issues kind of fact that need to be considered before we can make a decision. So I think that kind of we're moving towards a continuance and, hoping that or asking that the homeowners bring back, show us the math, the approved fence versus the as-built fence. What's the area there? Confirm that the posts are appropriately placed, that the barrel is gone, and give us some more images and measurements to see what the status of these plantings are. And when we have that information, we'll be in a better position to, draw our conclusion.
Okay, agreed. That's a good first meeting and a good discussion. So give us to your next meeting to produce that information. And we'll move on.
The next meeting will be May 20th.
Okay, so you agree to move on to the May 20th meeting, Bill?
Move on. I think we should, the next item on the agenda was the enforcement order. So I'd like to
Well-
talk about that.
Yeah, should we continue this though with a motion and then
Yes,
move
I
on to the
think we
enforcement
should.
order?
That's what I was, yeah.
Okay. And let's see, do I need to list out all the things that we discussed?
No, I have them. Unless you need it for your
Yeah,
motion.
okay, great. Then
You could
I'll
say as
just-
discussed
I can
with
say
conditions
as discussed, is
Yeah.
probably what I'll.
I mean, it's just a continuance, so there's no conditions.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with okay. Then I'll put forward a motion to continue the discussion of the request for certificate of compliance for OOC number 307-0844 for 46 Alderbrook Drive, map 68, lot 15, until our May 20th, 2026 meeting, so that the applicant can respond to our comments and provide what we asked for.
I'll second that motion.
Good. And how do we vote? Dodd Shamrock, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew
Marion
Mulholland, aye.
Bresnahan, aye. Oh,
Sorry.
Ben Kell, aye.
Did everyone vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Not sure. Okay. All right, good. Then we'll see you on the 20th on
that one.
just on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
then the next item on the agenda was the enforcement orders. There were 2 of them, 2020-05 and 2023-02.
Mhm.
The 2021 was the larger one in the front yard, and that involved clearing some vegetation in the buffer zone. And there was a lot of debris that was dumped over the embankment close to the wetland. The one in the back, well, there was some debris related to the stonework for the pool decking, and that debris had to be all pulled out from an embankment in the back of the property. So the cleanup work along the embankment in the front yard was done circa 2021 or so. That was done fairly quickly, but it was the vegetation installation that was delayed. And I think we talked about that when we did the notice of intent in 2023. That plantings all got installed very shortly thereafter. And that has been in the ground for 2 seasons, and I have reported to you twice now on the progress of that vegetation. The first year, we did meet the survival metrics. We had virtually 90% survival of all the vegetation. I did report to you the first year that there was some depredation by white-tailed deer, and we were having a problem with the tree species being rubbed by white-tailed bucks and damaging and killing some of those specimens. But we were certainly within the survival range, so we moved on to year 2. We had fairly significant drought conditions in 2024 to 2025. And we had some additional problems with white-tailed deer, and the plant survival was down to 50% of the nursery stock plants that were surviving. However, the metric in the approved restoration plan for year 2 was based on not so much plant count and a percentage of survival, but it was seeking a naturalized area with a mix of a distribution of woody plants and herbaceous cover. And despite the white-tailed deer depredation, we have achieved that distribution of woody plants and herbaceous cover. And the slope has been cleaned up for 4 years and well stabilized. So we are looking for a return to compliance on the 2020-05. Now, this is where there were 4 markers with the little salamander placard. They were on smaller sticks. The owner has agreed that he will install the 4x4 posts and put those markers, the town markers, on top of those posts. And we can get you photographs, or you can return to the site to verify that those posts are in place prior to you issuing the return to compliance letter. With respect to the one in the backyard, that was a much smaller area. The debris that was tossed over the bank has been taken out, and that bank has been stabilized. We did install a mulch sock at the bottom of that slope, and it's actually a straw wattle, and the straw has decomposed, and the green netting is still there. The owner said he would pull that out tomorrow. So again, we can verify that with photographs that that netting is actually pulled out, and then we would hopefully receive a return to compliance letter on that one.
I guess, Jackie, what are your initial thoughts here?
So first of all, I believe I misunderstood, and I apologize that I thought that the 2 enforcement orders were just referring to the amended one, but I didn't actually put the 2023 one on this agenda. So unfortunately, we'll have to put that on a future agenda, and I apologize for the mistake. The 2020 enforcement order is the one that I put on the agenda, which was amended, and I thought the amended enforcement order was the second one, but I guess I should have caught that 2023 one was also requesting compliance. So I visited the site, and I can show my photos from my site walk with Bill, and I did observe that a lot of those plants did not survive. As Bill reported, it's only 50% out of the 72 shrubs. And then I also had asked for those conservation posts to go in, and the silt sock netting to be taken out. I think it's up to the Conservation Commission's sort of determination of how much plants are required, since there wasn't really a requirement for how many had to survive. I think it's a judgment on what constitutes restoration of the area as the enforcement order intended. So let me see if I can pull up those photos again. Sorry, my Dropbox is telling me every time I click on something that my storage is full, so I should fix that before next meeting. Okay, 2026 photos. So here's one of the restoration area. And it does look like the area surrounding the trees is taller grass than the surrounding lawn, but you can see that some of these trees are not surviving.
Well, that's all whitetail browse right there on the hemlocks, which gives you an indication of the overpopulation of deer in that area, because they typically won't browse a hemlock, but here they are.
Yeah.
Those shrubs are surviving. It's just that all the green needles have been eaten off.
Yeah, I was looking at the table that was provided in the report, and it looked like certain species, like the gray birch and the arrowwood, had a very high survival rate. So I'm wondering if the commission does want to require additional plantings, maybe doubling down on the species that were successful would be a good idea, rather than trying to replant the same species that have been suffering. Let's see if I can show you the other angle. This is the area in back. There, that's the barrels. Let's see. Is that the same one? I thought I had another one, but I think this one is the best one we have, showing the planting area. And this is from the front roadway, looking towards the planting area. That's the house.
Yeah. So after 2 seasons, it was marked, and the landscapers are respecting that no mow line. You could see when you're out there, if it weren't, in the springtime, directly after we just had a couple of feet of snow melt, there is a definite demarcation between the maintained lawn and the restoration area. There is a distribution of 36 surviving shrubs, a mixture of trees and shrub specimens, and the area is 100% stabilized, and that is the metric for success on the approved planting plan. So it's a problem, or it's a shame that the deer really had a banquet there over the last couple of years. It is a shame that we ran into drought conditions. But as I said, as we move away from the initial season and we go into, our goal is to just naturalize the area, and what happens will happen moving forward. Some other species that weren't even on the restoration plan will move in. Others that the area may not have been perfectly suitable for, they'll die off, but will eventually achieve sort of a natural equilibrium, and that's what we're hoping for in year 2 and going forward.
So I found this photo, which shows what the conservation markers and posts look like right now. But just noting that the enforcement order required the cedar posts that are at least 2 feet high
And 4x4, right?
and
Is that
4
what
by
you said?
4. Yep.
Yeah. And
then-
that would have been fixed a while ago, but Heidi had seen that for the 2 seasons and apparently wasn't all that concerned with it. So it just carried forward. But the owner has agreed that he's going to put 4x4 posts in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And just for reference of how it looked back in 2023, this was for the 2023 enforcement order, but you can see there was a it's significantly improved since then. And then the end of season report from last year. You can see how it looked in October and 2024 and 2025. And then you can see the list of the surviving plants. Some of them have almost no survivors, but I did notice there were some like the gray birch that did survive. I'm not sure how this one went down and then back up.
Because I do the plant counts in the growing season, and it sometimes I missed some one year because of the taller herbaceous growth. So sometimes I may miss a couple. I think I mentioned that in my letter.
Okay, yep, so maybe this year was really 65 surviving, but then it really went down the second year. But a few of them, like arrowwood and gray birch, seemed like they did really well. But you can see it's exactly 50% survival.
Jackie, are you able to show us the before and after, or the before and now, like on the GIS? Like, you
Yeah,
know, the original conditions, and then, you know, because ultimately this is a restoration plan, right? We're trying to get back to something of a prior condition.
yeah, I'm just checking. It's not in this report, but I'll pull it up on the map.
To that point, though, the only condition that I keep hearing that's unmet is the stakes. Because we only had a growth metric for the first year.
Well,
But the
she has
stakes
this
are not-
language, right? She has this language that says the owner shall be responsible for assuring the lasting integrity of vegetative cover on the site, including the required mitigation plantings. So we have to interpret that.
So I think that one was from the
Oh.
order of conditions, so I might have mixed that
Okay. Okay.
up. But that was the language from the order of conditions. Let me see if the enforcement order
Yeah,
had
I mean,
anything similar.
I think because we don't have a percentage here, we can't assume that every single plant is going to survive. That's just how things are. So I'm probably going to be leaning towards being fine with things as they currently are, unless we have specific language that says otherwise.
Yeah, my language from the restoration plan said second year restoration goal is to establish a naturalized buffer zone and riverfront area in previously disturbed areas. Plant survival is not as critical for the second year. We expect by year 2 that there will be a natural leaf and woody detritus accumulation from the adjacent buffer zones. Success will be a stabilized ground surface with distribution of woody plants and herbaceous growth across the restored buffer zone and riverfront areas. plant coverage in the buffer zone is not a primary goal of the remediation effort. However, extensive bare areas should be reseeded. We
Mhm.
certainly did not have any bare areas there, so
Yeah.
No.
that's why I believe we have met the criteria that was approved back in 2020,
I think I agree.
despite the efforts of the white-tailed deer.
Yeah, I see, this
I-
is the language from the enforcement order. So it says, this is the amended order, and it says that the restoration plan should be complied with and carried out as written, including oversight, all dates and deadlines, reports, and 2-year plan monitoring. So if that's what was in the restoration plan, I mean, maybe it was an oversight for the commission not to include a percent survival because it could have been 0, but
It's what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is. So I have here the aerial imagery.
And just a point of clarification, though, that additional language that Bill read is from the actual restoration plan itself.
Yes.
So
Right.
that's something for us to really stay on top of going forward, because that's not language that we included in the plan. That's language the applicant included in the plan. So that's a real warning, I think, to us that if, folks are going to put stuff on the plans that carry on and get incorporated into orders, that's a problem. If it's not language that we're specifically adopting, and maybe we did, but
Right. I mean,
Like,
normally I would recommend adding it as a requirement of the enforcement order, whatever the survival threshold should be, just so that it will sort of supersede anything that's on the plans.
Yeah, but I mean, we got to really be on top of this because, to submit a plan and have additional language on there, like as if it's some sort of additional condition, we vote on the plan and we incorporate the plan into our order. But in this case, additional language on the plan that isn't explicitly part of our order,
But that's because we didn't have enough of our own conditions to be more powerful than that statement.
sure. I agree with you, but I also think that we need to be really careful and
So,
scrutinize the
As long as
plans.
we generally have, I'm with you 100%. I think that if going forward we're good about having, survival rates as even our, standard conditions and things like, then this shouldn't
Yeah,
come up again.
We'll
But
come.
at the same time, I think that we met the goal in this restoration plan. I think that area has been naturalized and it will continue to become more and more naturalized. So I'm not worried about this.
Yeah,
Right,
I think the markers to make sure they're more permanent and so the area stays naturalized is the most important.
Well, why don't, since the other one's going to be continued and there are various things that are not, you didn't have give us the proper information on something in this, and the conservation markers aren't up. Why don't we ask to continue this one until May 20th and get both done at once?
That's a fair ask. I mean, we have to come back and
Yeah,
then I can give Jackie photographs and then there's no question.
I think that would be great.
Yep.
Yep, and I'll make sure the 2023 order is added to the next agenda.
Right. Thanks, Bill.
All right. Well, thank you for your time this evening. It was a long time with the snow cover and all to be able to get to this point.
Definitely. According to yesterday, I wasn't sure we were going to be able to.
Okay.
All right.
Should
Do
I
we
just
need
make a quick motion to
a
continue?
motion? Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we continue the discussion of amended enforcement order 2020-05 for 46 Alderbrook Drive, map 68, lot 15, until our May 20th, 2026 meeting, to allow time for conservation posts to be installed.
I
All
second
right.
that
Thank you
motion.
for your time. Oh, go ahead.
Did we vote on that?
Nope.
Well, I don't think so. Who seconded it?
I did.
All right. How do we vote? Dodge Shamroth, aye.
Ben DiCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Warren Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kayla, aye.
That's it.
Now,
Everybody?
thank you for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a hearing in NOI for 3070873 for School Avenue and 10 School Avenue, map 41, lot 60. And shall I go ahead and do the other one at the same time, Jackie?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to open both.
Yeah. NOI 3070872 for 10 School Ave and 35 rear Maria Drive. Oh, Main Street. Read it wrong. Sorry. 41, map 41, lot 60, and map 41, lot 133. It's the Topsfield garages, and it's Topsfield garages for redevelopment of School Avenue, and it's the Topsfield garages for request for redevelopment of subject lots, including the garage, construction of a restaurant, and associated apertures. Okay, and is there someone here to represent these folks?
It's a bunch of us.
Yeah, good. Hi.
Do you want me to kick us off?
Sure.
So on the phone, we have myself, Tim Collins. We have Brig Leland there, who's owner of Marble Ridge. And from Hancock Associates, we have Tim Grant, who you can see in the picture. And Jay, who was presented from Hancock Associates, who's presented the last couple times, may join us. He had a conflict, so he's on another call, but he plans to join us when done. Tim, have you heard from him? Do you know when if he might be able to join?
Jay was double booked this evening, and he's in another town public hearing right now, so I will be filling in for him at the moment.
I understand, but when we talked earlier, he thought he might be able to join us. So if Jay may join us, so don't be surprised.
Yeah.
if his call ends. So my understanding is, where we are now is, we had the peer review done of the stormwater management, system or solution. And then Hancock Associates responded to that and had some back and forth. And my understanding is the peer reviewer has come back and said he's satisfied with the responses from, Hancock, therefore us. And then on the, we had a kind of unsolicited letter from Ipswich River Watershed Association where they shared some thoughts for you all to consider. And, we got a copy of that. So we, Brig and I discussed that with Hancock, and they reviewed it, and then they were comfortable with what they were suggesting. So then we had Jay write a letter to you guys saying, if those things you want us to do, we're fine with it. So I think that's where we are. So I'm not aware of any open issues at this point. Is that fair, Jackie, in terms of where we are?
Yeah, I think that's a good overview. I guess, I don't know if Tim Grant, if you feel comfortable just giving us a brief overview of all the changes that were made in response to the second round of peer review, just to update the commission on that.
Yeah, I can do that. If you'd like, I can share my screen. So most of the comments we addressed in the second round were straightforward from the design basis. I can just kind of run through them quickly if the commission would like. Just allow me a second to pull this up.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay. Share. It should be this one, I believe. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
So this was our response letter to Bobrick, the peer reviewer's second response back to us. And based on this response, Bobrick also responded saying they accept all of these and everything is concluded from there. But just to run through these for simplicity, their first comment was just for us to add a table on our plan showing the net impervious reduction across the site and the relation to the total degraded area across the site, which is an overall reduction. So we just noted, and we confirmed it. Comment one was very straightforward. The next comment was to clearly show the areas of degraded area. So we prepared a plan, which I can also share. This plan, which shows in the yellow highlighted area what we considered as our existing degraded area on the site where the project is happening. And that was concurred with in Bobrecht's response, saying they, that we, I should say, have properly shown. And this also relates to the conservation easement, which I believe the commission is familiar with. That will be a part of the School Ave project for that degraded area. There will be the easement on the property to allow for that restoration area. And it's our understanding that we wrote here in our second response, the easement will be recorded following approvals from all applicable municipal boards. Moving on to the next comment, this relates to the transects for the floodway. Bobrecht requested in their second round to show a section I according to the corresponding FEMA map, which they attached here. So we did add that to our plans. It's basically off of the plans, so that's why it wasn't included previously. I can just show you on this sheet here where that is. If I zoom out a little bit. Our property is right here, and cross-section I is north of our site up here. So we showed it for consistency and reflecting the full picture, and that was addressed to include information from the transects as well. So as you can see on this aerial, the property lines are yellow, the transects are what's shown in red, which are all added on the plan, and the culvert is the line shown in white. And that shows the full length for the transects that are associated with our subject property, including transect I, which is even beyond, but we did still include it per the peer review comment. This next comment related to some of the drainage design on our site. There was a little bit of back and forth with the peer reviewer on how to best address. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to get my plan here. Just going to our drainage plan. It relates to this subsurface infiltration system with the existing catch basin, how it was routed to our system. In short, we came up with an agreed alternate solution to properly route it, and the outlet is towards outfall number 2, shown here in the brook. Not to get too in the weeds, but there was some discussion about routing it a different direction. There was an obstacle though, because we have a septic tank here that was sort of playing a factor in, or I should say limiting where we could route our catch basin. But eventually, to summarize, we achieved the water quality volume from that catch basin, and it is piped properly. And Bobrecht eventually agreed with that based on discussion. Moving on, this was a comment just related to the stormwater report. This one was pretty simple, that they just wanted to see tables shown for consistency. I believe there may have been a typo in one of the previous versions comparing our peak volumes and peak rates. That was addressed and corrected. So they are entirely consistent now across all documents.
Good.
I'm sorry, was someone trying to talk or?
No, I just said good.
Okay, sorry. Moving on. This next comment relates more again to the easement. And we will be working with the town to have the proper drainage easements recorded prior to the construction, so therefore no dilemmas or discrepancies will come as a part of the drainage easements or any of the other easements on the site once the property sale has been finalized, once the permitting has been finalized. It's the intent of the peer review and everyone involved that everything is sort of buttoned up, for lack of a better word, prior to closeout.
Let me interject there, Tim, if I can, because
Yeah,
I've had some
please.
dialogue on that
Please.
topic. So, I talked to Kevin on that. He had talked to town attorney. So I talked to my attorney. And so we did is have drafted an easement that covers, all 3 easements, actually, the required easements, and have sent that. I agreed to do it just to accelerate things. And so those have been written and they've been sent to town attorney. And we're supposed to meet next week and see if he has any changes to them. So the idea is to have the town record them before the sale. Then, then the town gets what they want. It's recorded, and then I buy it with easements in place. But that was just the way the lawyers thought it was best to handle. So,
Great.
fine with me.
Thanks, Tim. Moving on to what I think our last, yeah, just did the easement. This again was just related to our HydroCAD, our stormwater calculation output. They just wanted to see additional summary pages and hydrographs, which were included. And we updated our tables accordingly to show that additional information they were requesting. And then lastly, Bobrec's final additional comment was just to include the note prioritizing snow storage outside of all buffer zones and disposal offsite. So we added this note to our plans stating snow storage shall be prioritized offsite and removal and disposal offsite. So that's a sort of a very brief summary of what Bobrek commented, what we responded with, and once again, Bobrek then responded saying all comments addressed and we're good from their perspective.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions about that? And then I'll also mention the comments that we received from IRWA.
Right, I can pull up the Ipswich River watershed comments as well. I have those as well.
Yeah,
Our
I took a look at
response.
those. They all seem like reasonable comments. In those.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
they
were very brief. One was just about irrigation system on site, which we don't have proposed irrigation, and another was about similar comment about snow storage.
And a well.
One was about a maintenance contractor getting on board for long-term maintenance. So all very straightforward things that
Yeah.
we took no issue with.
Anyone have any comments or questions?
I think last time we were here, we were just waiting for the final peer review comments to be responded to, and they have been. But also that the ZBA was pending approval of the project, and I see a note that it hasn't formally approved it, but intends to at their next meeting. Where is that information coming from? How do we know that?
Well, I was on the call with ZBA, so they and it's recorded. They actually took a vote to approve it, but then they said they didn't have the notes ready to list all the things that were talked about in the meeting, and that they were going to at the next meeting have those notes and approve it. So I went back and they asked me if I was okay with that, and I responded saying only if. I just asked them, can you unapprove it? Like, I don't really get it. We just had a discussion. We approved it. And they said, no. Bob Moriarty said, no, there's 100% chance it's approved. We can't unapprove it.
Yeah.
I think candidly, they didn't have someone to take notes. That's kind of was my take on it.
Okay.
So it's approved, but next month we get, a document saying what we talked about, which is fine.
Yeah, because that triggers the appeal period if there is any. And okay, but what you're representing tonight is that in essence the board is behind it. They're going to vote to approve it. They're just
No,
waiting.
they voted. I mean, Brig, you were there. They voted. It was unanimous, and Bob said,
Okay.
100% chance, we can't unapprove it. Because I wanted to hear that, because I didn't really get why we'd approve it and then talk about it a month later, frankly, right?
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's, yeah. It's not over till it's over, but okay, I just was curious
Right.
where that information came from. I mean, not that it necessarily needs to hold us up, but I know we were being, aware of that fact that it was pending approval. But I think coupled with the fact that we were also waiting for the peer review to wrap up as well, which I think for me anyway was the more significant thing because we required the approval. It made sense to wrap it up. And I think, Jackie, you just noted on if we were to vote to approve this and add conditions, that question that kind of came up already tonight in another matter about the survival of the plantings and what that survival rate is and, whether it makes sense to have something maybe a little bit higher. I'm sure these folks don't want to have a bunch of dead plants on their business property.
Probably not.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, right? So if they die, we replace them. But yeah, whatever you want to say there.
Yeah.
And I guess we'd be open to maybe you say something like 80%.
I think the
I don't
number
know.
that
Yeah.
so I think so we have trees and shrubs. I think for the trees, I mean, we should probably look for at least 80%, if not 100%, and then for shrubs and other small stuff, looking more like 80%.
Yeah.
That'd
That's
be-
fine. Let's break, right? Because we're not going to, if there's a dead shrub people can see, that doesn't do good for business, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Andrew, you think a higher percentage for trees?
I think that, I mean, especially, I don't know, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
does this project have any replacement plantings? Like, or there's no trees that are coming down for this project?
There are trees coming down for the project.
So then trees need to be at least, 1-to-1, which is why I'm thinking that those need to be 100% survival, where the shrubs and other things are more about, generally, having restoration and, areas. That's kind of why I'm leaning towards more 100% on trees. But
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah, I don't know if the trees are 1-to-1. It's
Yeah.
different from our tree policy for RD&Is, which
okay, that's fair.
but for this, there's the riverfront regulations, which regulate the amount of degraded and non-degraded area and the restoration and mitigation for any increase in degraded area. So I know at the last meeting, we discussed that there are areas where trees will be removed. But there are some trees being replanted, but I don't think we necessarily counted the trees in terms of how many. It's more based on area.
Sure. So, I mean, if the commission would rather have like across the board 80% for everything, I think that that's fine as well. I just think for the more substantial things like trees, like,
And-
should do every
and-
effort to have them.
I don't see how we can come up with an amount of trees and shrubs till we see everything built. I mean,
We
I don't-
proposed a number of trees and shrubs, right? So
Yeah, there's certain like
Yeah.
nursery stock numbers that are proposed.
Right. I think I've seen in a lot of other towns that there's standard survival rates that they use as a standard condition. So that's, I think, something we should consider, like more of just a uniform requirement.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to specify trees versus shrubs, especially on a big project, because if the survival rate is 80%, but then only 20% of the plantings are trees, and that means that there are no surviving trees, but all of the shrubs are surviving. So in differentiating them can help with ensuring the results that we want.
Okay. I mean, I'd be fine with 80% of trees and 80% of shrubs.
Yeah, that sounds pretty high, actually. I mean,
Again, I hope you have 100% survival rate. Like this is,
Yeah.
and you might, even if you're still hitting 80%, want to replace those. This is, I think, just some minimums for us.
Are we
Yeah, I
making
think
it? Are we making it hard though with counting and calculating? I mean, if you listen to them, why wouldn't it just be adherence to the plan for a certain number of years? Because if something doesn't survive, it needs to be replaced.
Well, I mean, not to bring up things that we've already discussed in this meeting, but
Yeah.
we run into situations if we don't have a metric that is the cutoff, then we end up, we're just interpreting language that we don't, it's nice to have numerical.
It matters when you come back for certificate of compliance to determine what constitutes substantial compliance with the plans.
How do we know how many shrubs and things to put in? I mean,
It's in the plan.
Right, and
There's
the
an
number we're
agreement
talking
between
about is
the
a percentage. So for the 100,
If planting 20 trees, then
Yeah.
16 of them need to be alive in 2 years.
And
Okay.
if not, you can plant more to
Yeah.
reach the numbers.
I mean, like that's fine with us. Like, I think, like Andrew just said, if shrubs that are visible die, like we're definitely going to replace them. The only thing I can think of is there's a tree, we plant 8 trees and one dies and nobody sees it, we
Yeah,
probably wouldn't
I
replace
mean-
it, but if we have to, we will.
Sometimes there's certain spots that trees just don't want to be. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. You just never know. Like, I've got enough experience with that. Yeah.
So I'm happy. I do like the idea of having a separate value for trees and shrubs. I think that's important. But I think 80% for both of those categories is reasonable for me.
This is only for 2 years, right,
Yeah,
Jackie?
after 2 years, you can let them all
Yeah.
die.
I mean, if 2 years they die,
Thanks, Andrew.
yeah, you might be coming in to remove a dead tree or something, and then it's
Mhm.
like, okay, you can replace it with a shrub someplace else. I think, okay, keep it simple. 80-80.
Okay.
Works for me.
Yeah, I'll note that the mitigation and restoration areas, as a standard condition, need to remain in perpetuity, but at that point, after the 2 years, if something dies, it's just important that it remains as an area with natural plantings. Like not converting it to impervious area or mowing it or something like that.
Right.
I think the IRWA comments made sense. I thought the response to them was good, but I did think some of those could be incorporated as conditions. I think their suggestions of not using synthetic fertilizers or pesticides or automatic irrigation systems, future private wells for irrigation use, keeping snow storage out of the 100-foot inner riparian zone, not using salt and chemical de-icers on site I would say maybe without approval from conservation, because there might be a time when they need to be used. But prioritizing better solutions. I agree with the third-party maintenance of the stormwater, wastewater systems. I think that can be something we just ask for the agreement to be submitted to me prior to starting work. And then same with the access and maintenance agreement for the offsite mitigation area for the School Ave roadway project. I think a condition just requiring that agreement be approved by me before starting work would be sufficient for that.
I just understand that, Jackie, like what does that really mean? Call a landscape company and say, please agree to maintain this?
Oh, so that was for like the easement with the town allowing.
Right, but like, what agreement do you want to see? The easement agreement, or do you want to see some agreement with somebody to maintain it?
I think maintenance, or just as long as the easement has the ability to maintain it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the commission has any other thoughts, just at least allowing maintenance by the owners of the restaurant property.
Is this for the trails? Is that what we're thinking? Were you talking about that area?
This is, so remember there's an area on 10 School Ave that's being used as 2-to-1 mitigation for the alterations on the School Ave roadway. So I think some form of agreement allowing access to maintain it, because
Right.
the owner
Agreement
of 10
for it,
School Ave,
yes.
whoever that may be many years into the future, it just needs to be agreed upon by that the town has the ability to maintain that, because the town is the one who owns the roadway and is required to maintain their mitigation area.
So
Does that
the
make
way the
sense?
easement's written right now, sorry to interject, but the way the easement is written right now, which has not been formalized
Mhm.
or I guess recorded, is that all future owners, basically there's an easement saying that any future owner has to maintain that area as mitigation and comply with Conscom. So right now, like we have to do, which is fine. So whoever buys, if we sell it to somebody else, they have to maintain that. So it's kind of almost, it's better. The town doesn't have to do it.
Okay, yeah, that covers it. I mean, I was
Yeah.
sort of thinking either that or the town
Yeah.
has the
Well,
ability to manage it themselves, but that works even better.
One of the other easements is the town has the ability to come onto the property and maintain Schoolbrook Ave if they need it. And I'm talking to Gary, like they haven't ever done that, but they just want to have the ability to do it if something happened with the brook, I guess. So yeah, that's fine. That's the other reason. One of the other reasons. And the third one is emergency vehicles, driving up School Ave as they have done in the past. So those three have been, the language has been written again. And I know my understanding is that the town's attorney's seen it, didn't really have any issues, but wanted to look at it closely and come back, and I'm sure something will change, right?
That sounds good. Yeah, I think I would just want to make sure that agreement is in place before we start work that then requires the mitigation that then doesn't necessarily have an agreement. So let me see, was there anything else? The septic plan was approved by Board of Health.
Jackie, I just had a quick question about the Ipswich, letter response. When you say, when you were going through those comments and suggesting that, that there are some recommendations to this decision, are those suggestions based on our responses to their letter or taking the language that they recommended? Because I know that Tim and Jay and I worked on that, on kind of providing thoughtful responses to each one of their points, just so that, we can make sure that we are kind of meeting what we need to meet while also accomplishing what they were looking for.
Let's take a look at those comments so we can go over it. I'm mentioning those suggestions so we have the opportunity to discuss if your team has any concerns about the suggestions, but let me show, because now is the time to go over it and make sure the conditions are something that would be acceptable. I think some of these things would be good to incorporate as conditions, so it's clear when someone reads the order of conditions, rather than just being part of the correspondence throughout the many documents that have been shared throughout this process. But that's up to the commission on whether these are important enough that we want to include them in special conditions. So we had a comment on the drought-resistant native plantings that do not require irrigation, landscapes to be managed organically without use of synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. And then the response here was that the landscape plan proposes drought-resistant native plantings not requiring irrigation beyond establishment phase and will be managed organically without the use of synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. So it seems like that condition is acceptable.
Yeah, my wife would disown me if I did anything inorganic. So there's no chance we're gonna do anything there.
So for our purposes, we're going to, I think, condition that synthetic fertilizers are not allowed to be used. I don't think we're going to condition that the drought resistant plants, because you're already planning to do that. But so that in perpetuity, there's a condition present for the use of synthetic stuff. Anyway, that's
no problem.
Yeah, and Andrew, I'm glad you're clarifying, because that's kind of what I'm trying to understand, is what's going to be, what are we going to be specifically required in perpetuity? So
yeah, and this is just what this might, whoever makes the motion, we'll see what the exact language is, but this is at least what I am interpreting.
Yeah.
Right, so we're discussing right now, ultimately, the commission will make a motion and then whatever they approve, if they do approve the motion, would be the conditions, and then if you don't like them, you can appeal the application, but hopefully we can reach something that's
Yeah.
agreeable to everyone.
Well, that's fine with us. I mean, what Andrew just talked about, it's our plan anyway, basically.
Yeah, I'd also note that there are standard conditions we include on every permit that we're not specifically listing right now, like having a pre-activity conference before starting work, etc. There's a whole list, but what we're discussing now is if we want to add any special conditions. The next thing is that no automatic irrigation systems or irrigation wells. I notice it says no irrigation wells are proposed at this time. Is there a thought of future irrigation wells?
No,
No.
Okay.
So I think that this would probably be something that we condition as well, that you can, there's not to be any installation of automatic irrigation and no irrigation wells are to be dug.
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the next one for snow storage, I guess this one is a little more, oh no, it does say that snow storage should be kept out of the inner riparian zone, which, by the way, it means within 100 feet of the bank of the stream, with options for off-site removal as needed. The use of salt and chemical de-icers will be minimized in favor of sand and environmentally safe de-icers. So that
Yeah, I think
One comment
matches.
on this, like there's just, if you remember last time we showed, like there's one of the paths for the plow is to go kind of through the parking lot along the, in the parking lot, obviously, but along the brook. And then you put the snow up at the end there. And so I think there'll be a period of time where the snow's up at the end before you can come back and move it. Right. So like, they're not going to, you can't like plow around the corner, up the hill and around. So they're going to have to plow and put it in the pile, then move the pile. But that's not a big deal. But just to be crystal clear, right? They still have to, if there's a storm and there's, you got to get the snow off there, they're going to have to plow down that parking lot, stick it next to the dumpsters, then come back with a thing and move it.
Okay, so there would need to
Yeah, I
be
think-
temporary.
Yeah, maybe temporary. Yeah, there'd be no or temporary, I don't know how you word that, but exceptions during clearing or something like that, can be made.
yeah,
Just
or
be-
maybe like no long-term storage.
Yeah, I think just, no long-term storage.
Yeah. That's fine. Because we don't want it there anyway, right? I mean, you don't want a big pile of snow. So but sometimes being the plow guy this year, it's property, like it takes a day to get out there the next day and move the pile. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think just to, again, for clarity, we would probably condition something along the lines of long-term snow storage shall be kept out of the 100-foot inner riparian zone. That would be our safe condition there. In terms of what long-term storage means, that's maybe still fuzzy,
Yeah.
It may be clearer just to permit short-term storage rather than saying no long-term,
Okay.
right?
I think though, making special conditions, it's more stating what like what the limits are,
Prohibited.
like what's
Yeah.
prohibited.
Because everything that we don't say is allowed unless we prohibit it.
Well, I mean, as long as it's reasonably in accordance with the plans, but
Yeah, well,
So the debate becomes
Because really,
long-term.
what is long-term storage of snow, right? Like, it's gonna
To me-
melt
to me, it means,
eventually.
like you clear for the storm and then, it's going to be a contractor, right? It comes clear for the storm. Then he's got to go clear out his other customer. So he doesn't come back till the next day to pick up the piles. That's kind of what happens. And so it's not like months, it's
Yeah. I mean, we
How about-
condition snow storage relatively regularly. Like,
Yeah.
I don't remember that we've usually have to discuss.
Yeah.
I mean, do we want to say 48 hours or do we want to just say if I see snow storage, I'm going to tell them to remove it. And then if they don't remove it promptly, that's going to be the enforcement order.
I mean, I think I'll be operating the property and me and my team or subcontractors will be handling the snow storage. I mean, I just want this to be feasible. We all know that there are some pretty rough winters and this last one was worse than the past few years. And so it's just, how do we make this condition feasible while also understanding that we really don't want snow inside the 100-foot area, but also B, we still need to run our business and keep it up and running. So
yeah, I mean, the point of this condition is that you don't have a massive pile of snow that melts into the stream all at once.
Yeah.
And I think that the term snow storage kind of gives parameters there, storage versus management.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. And obviously, there'll be snow that melts next in the 100-foot zone because it's going to drop there on grass, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a problem. It's more if things get plowed off the road, it's like litter.
I get it. Yeah, no,
et cetera.
I think we are together here. So the wording is, just as long as, like Briggs said, as long as it's practical. And I mean, I don't love the 48-hour thing because, it's the blizzard of 78, right? It's like it took us 72 hours.
We could say during a snow, not during except during a snow emergency. I don't know.
Whatever. Yeah, you could do. I'm sure we can figure this out. But
I think when you use the word temporary, even though it's maybe not precise, within the context of snow events and snow storage, it takes on a different meaning than temporary in other contexts.
Yeah.
So,
How about the word feasible?
Yeah.
Practical, feasible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does. It really depends on winters. I remember winters where there just wasn't any way if you could move it. When was it? In the early 70s. It was bogged down Boston for a whole week.
Yeah. 10 years ago, we had like 6 feet, and you're 6 feet in the front yard, right? It's just like,
Yeah, I personally, I think that the language of long-term snow storage captures what we need to capture here, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't care. That's fine with me.
Okay.
And then the last thing here is that a third party should be contracted with to maintain the stormwater and wastewater systems, which I think can be a condition.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
sorry, just to back up 1 second as well on the salt and chemical deicers. So will be minimized just in terms of what we want to condition on that. Would it work for us to not allow it unless you basically contact Jackie requesting the use of it? Or
what do you think, Greg? Yeah, let's have a conversation. Like, Brig, what do you think? Because my take is we don't want to use that stuff, but if it doesn't work, if the other materials don't work and we have people falling down, then
I mean, safety is obviously the priority here.
So maybe that's something like that says, as because we're aligned in what we what we want to do. So maybe unless required for safety reasons or something like that.
Unless approved by the agent.
Would you be willing to just give Jackie a quick call and basically say, can we, it's icy right now, can we use this? Or, does it need to be, the language need to be precise enough to give you access? Is this making any sense, the slight?
Yeah, and I see my reaction, Briggs is probably the better one to talk, but I'm sorry, I already started. Is that we're together in alignment, but it's some of the days at the farm, right? You get out there and you plow, and then thing's an ice rink, and you got people coming to the event, and we call Jackie, and it's 8 o'clock at night. Jackie doesn't respond, and everyone falls over. Like that doesn't work,
Yep.
So I think it's by some kind of leeway,
Tim, do you mind if I jump in? Jay
go ahead.
Blackowitz at Hancock Associates, by the way. Maybe what we could do is designate certain areas that can be used without permission for with these de-icing materials, specifically like the walkways going up to the buildings, the ADA access, ramps, stairs, anything like that is definitely critical. And then if we get one of those ice storms like we had recently, then Tim could call Jackie and say, hey, Jackie, got a bad ice storm. We need to ice some of the parking lot as well. I just hate for anytime it gets below freezing that we have to call Jackie because our handicap ramp is covered in ice.
No, 100%.
I think that's a good idea to have an exception for walkways, stairs, ramps, crosswalk, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, pedestrian traffic areas, basically, you know.
And what's going to continue to happen with the fire department? They're still going to be able to cut through, right?
Yeah, that's part of the easement that they
Yeah.
will agree to. Yep.
So just so there's safe passage for those guys too, I think.
Yeah.
And I assume there shouldn't be anyone coming from High Street 97, right?
Yeah, we've talked to the town. My suggestion was they put a fence there that only works for if you have a town decal or whatever, not decal, but you know what I mean, some kind
Oh,
of
that's a good idea.
yeah. And so you know, it's a good idea until you have to pay for it. But
Yeah.
you know, so that was the idea. But then you know, no one can do it. They can't get through. Otherwise, it'll be a big sign like, you know, not for public use, or you know, we don't
Right.
want people doing that. We don't want it to be a cut through because for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can see his car coming down. It's pretty steep right there. It could be
Yeah,
an
exactly. They
attack.
come down and there's a person walking across, you know, whatever, coming across the driveway.
No.
We don't want that.
No.
They don't use it too much. I mean, I think it's probably, we won't get used that much, but in
Right.
certain situations, it could be life or death. So they definitely need access. Yeah.
Tim, where did we land with pedestrians walking through there?
We basically were okay with, we talked about people going on, you know, using the walkway on the 35R in Greenbelt. You know, if someone wanted to walk through there and using it, that was okay, but not cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, people have asked us, and we've had multiple meetings with people who would like to walk through the fire station like they do right now,
Right.
down School Street, and we'll continue to allow that.
Yeah.
Just no cars.
Right.
It's good to know. There was one more thing. I think one of the commission had mentioned to me about conservation posts and markers. It's a standard condition, or it's a somewhat standard condition because we don't require it if it's already there, but we normally, for new projects that don't have them, we require conservation posts and markers along the sort of either the edge of the mitigation areas or near the wetland. So I think it would make sense to include that on this project. I think Tim let me know that that was okay. If it's subject to my approval, or I don't know if the commission had any opinion on the markers or how many or where they should be, but if not, I think we could add that as a condition to be subject to my approval prior to requesting certificate of compliance.
So they wouldn't be in any pedestrian walkway, obviously, right? They'd be to the side of it or something off the, as long as it's not in the middle of the parking lot. You know?
No.
Yep, we would make sure it's somewhere that makes sense, not
Right.
not in anyone's way.
And Jackie, just for some clarification on that, would that just be on the 10 School Avenue property, or would we need to continue it down the 35R main property as well?
That's a good question. I think 10 School Ave is the most important. I don't know if 35 are mean. I mean, do you want to pull up the plan and we can sort of look at it and take a rough idea of what makes sense, or I can try to pull it up if whoever gets to it first.
Yep, it'll just take me 1 second.
In this instance, these will serve mostly to keep
I still have it.
landscapers out and
Yeah.
errant traffic, like errant foot traffic, right?
Right. I mean, it helps with landscapers and also helps the fact that they're maintained in perpetuity if a future property owner is walking around, they can see that there's a protected area.
So this is the existing conditions plan, but it's really the only plan that extends through 35R Main. So, the closest thing is our septic system, which is over in this area. There is the Greenbelt Trail that does go through here. That would really be the only traffic.
I mean, I know sometimes we do require them for septic systems that are residential or commercial, but maybe like right behind the septic system, just to make sure there's no further encroachment into the natural area behind it.
Yeah. I mean, now that I look at it, it isn't that long of a stretch to do something over here.
Mhm.
The 35R Main parcel itself is smaller than I remember. I just want to make sure we're covering all our bases when we do it.
So along the language, like along the septic field area, something like that.
Maybe we could do it off the edge of the proposed trail. Just so that people don't exit the trail, which is up here.
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
Just to keep people out of down here.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that.
If we don't want to have to specify, we could just say, as agreed to by Jackie.
Yeah, that's typically what a lot of our permits say. With this one, I mean, normally I would attach a plan showing the location they should be on the permit. With this one, it might be good for me to walk the site and make sure we agree on a good location for them before I issue the permit with that attached plan showing where they should be located. But I think that can be just a condition that they're subject to my approval, and then I can make sure the locations make sense to everyone else. I think that's everything I had on my list, but did anyone else have any other questions or conditions? And then if not, we can open it to public comment.
I just had one quick question about the pesticides. Is it a prohibition against all pesticides, or is it a prohibition against synthetic pesticides? Because it is a restaurant, obviously. It's
Yeah.
supposed to-
I don't know.
I guess it's unclear the way it's written.
Yeah, I would think most pesticides, well, I guess they could be both, right?
Yeah.
If I may, we're planning on having native species, but doing minimal landscaping.
Mhm.
Obviously we don't want synthetic pesticides, but I mean, at our winery, we have all natural fertile, like, I don't know if you call them pesticides, but like tea tree oil is one that we,
Yeah.
that's if needed. I mean, I don't think we need it here, but I feel like we're trying to avoid having chemicals, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that that we've discussed in the past are things like rodenticides as well in buffer zones, and like whether or not we allow those. And that kind of, those are synthetic pesticides. But if you have it would be a public health issue if at a restaurant, I'm not saying that there is going to be a rat. In fact, I'm not saying that, but
Yeah.
it becomes a health issue as well. So I think the language here we do need to be slightly careful of.
Yeah.
I know at the farm they have it got Emily approved, my wife, and it's like vinegar and something else. It's all natural, but it actually keeps grass down and areas that you don't have to weed, but it's natural. So I don't know. So I guess no synthetic sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
They can use natural stuff,
pesticides to me denotes a broad category of products.
Okay.
I think that's the issue. Like it can be insects, right? But it can also be, I think, like rodents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pesticide. So it's pretty broad. So that's why I asked the question, because of the intended use of the property. If we were just to blanket, I think, eliminate pesticides, I personally, I'm not sure we could.
Well, that
You know?
it would only be in buffer zone that we would be able to. So there would still be areas that those could be used technically.
So
Yeah,
if they were rats, and we try to avoid rats, right? We have,
But yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I pay a guy at the farm to get rid of rats because, we don't want them. And so
Yeah.
we pay a small amount. He comes once a month and we don't have any rats. But
Yeah.
I'd rather do it proactively, right? Make sure.
Yep.
I don't know exactly what they use, but it's not in the
Yeah.
wetlands.
yeah.
So under the federal law, pesticide is a substance that is intended for preventing, destroying, repelling, or mitigating any pest, which is a really, really broad term.
yeah.
Yeah, helpful.
My Google AI overview is telling me that it's broken down into insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, and miticides. So I guess if we don't want to completely get rid of
Those are the
something like,
pests.
yeah, those are the pests that are pesticides. Maybe we could get it more specific to something like just the herbicides or something like that.
Well, I think the distinction was between synthetic and
That was my
organic or
question.
natural. Yeah.
Because, yeah, sorry.
Here's my issue though. It's entirely possible that a natural rodenticide that works efficiently exists, but
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
if there is a rat outbreak. Again, not saying this is going to happen, but
Right.
I'm not,
I mean, right, they're gonna contract with
Pesticide
a
is
pest
really
management
broad.
company that's gonna develop most people have an IPM now that's gonna adhere to modern standards for pest management practices, which are gonna include mechanical, chemical, and physical ways to limit entry into the facilities.
Yeah, we work with one,
Yeah,
Freedom Pest Control. Yeah.
yeah, Freedom does good
Yeah.
work.
Well, does
so
I guess so that if it's outside I mean, we talking rats doesn't sound like it sounds weird to talk about them, but like we don't want rats, right? And so like I think we'd want to be able to make sure that doesn't happen. So I guess if they had something that didn't fit your category, that you couldn't use it within the within the buffer zone, right? Would that be the idea? So I guess can
Yeah,
you put
but
them around
at
property?
what
right?
point are you
Yeah.
ever going to be trying to get rid of pests in the buffer zone? I think we're too far in the weeds here, right? Like
I don't
almost
want to
all
be.
pest management is
Yeah.
gonna be around the facilities and at any infiltration points, which none of which should be in the buffer zone.
So could we have some language like whatever language you come up with, but just expressly say pest control will be authorized or something? I don't know. Just that.
I mean,
okay with that.
or we can just say without approval of the conservation agent. So you always have an out if you need it. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I like the idea of the pest management plan, so that way it's like it's just an offshoot of this. We'll develop a pest management plan with upon consultation with the agent, or it doesn't have to be anything dramatic, but just that, it'll lay it out. But I get it. I know we don't want to get in the weeds, but it just as this note that I'm looking at is written, it's not clear on whether it would be all pesticides or synthetic pesticides, and I'm not sure that we can even make that distinction.
I agree.
I'm wondering if, like if there's any invasive species removal in the mitigation restoration areas. That's something that people sometimes would use an herbicide for, like to control invasive plants. And in that case, I think there are cases where it is a good idea to use them, but it's probably subject to conservation agent approval to make sure it's all being done appropriately.
Yeah, so how about just a basic condition that, I mean, it seems like the synthetic fertilizers may be an easy no-brainer, but then with respect to any pesticide use that prior to, any implementing any, widespread pesticide use, that the owner will consult with the administrator to develop an appropriate plan.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds fair. I'll tell you, the Board of Health typically will require us to have a pest management contractor and plan. So yeah.
Yeah. So then those two things can work together basically. As you're dealing with Board of Health, then you can deal with Jackie, and then, she can isolate those areas that you got to just stay out of basically. And then we're not overstepping our bounds trying to manage an area that is honestly very problematic, because that's not what we normally do. But
Yeah.
so I don't know, that'd be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Tim, I don't have a problem with that.
No, that makes sense. I mean, as long as it's like we said, mutually agreeable or whatever, pest removal, what do you call it, pest reduction or pest management. I love that. Like, we're going to manage them. We're going to kill them. But,
But you're gonna manage where these little critters come from.
because they're going to go to the dumpster, right?
Right.
They're going to be,
Yeah.
they'll go to the dumpster.
If it's invasive species, sometimes the attempt doesn't kill them. So
Yeah.
you have to.
We're going to have all the
keep
rats
on
hanging
it.
out by the stream. Like, we can't touch them. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Like they're going to be at the dumpster and, right by the property, right? They go where the food is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it's whatever plan we develop, we'll just run it by Jackie and make sure
Yeah.
that we're all on board with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that works. So yeah, Greg, I know you just said you're on board with it. I'm on board with that. Yeah.
Great.
So like, Jennifer's language sounded good.
Does the committee have any more questions? Jackie, if it's all right with you, I'm going to open it to the public.
Okay.
Any comments? Does anyone out there wish to comment on any of these things or have questions? Once again, does anyone from the public have any questions or comments on all this? I guess you've scared off everyone.
Yeah, I'll note that I received one
Oh, you
comment
did?
letter in support
Okay.
of the project a few months ago, but that's it. Other than
Okay.
or was letter.
All right, so are we all good? Anyone else? May I have a motion to close the hearing?
I'll make a motion that we close the hearing on, let me just pause for a moment. So we're going to handle both of these separate, I'm assuming. I think we have to.
I think we can
So-
close both hearings, but then each one has to be their own motion.
Okay, fair enough. So I will make a motion that we close the hearing on notice of intent 3070873, that's School Avenue and 10 School Avenue, map 41, lot 60, Topsfield Garages LLC, and notice of intent number 3070872, 10 School Avenue and 35R Main Street, map 41, lot 60, and map 41, lot 133, Topsfield Garages LLC.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got-
You want to continue, Jen?
well, we
Need to
got to
vote.
vote on
Oh,
that, on the
vote.
closure, sorry.
All right, we need a second.
I seconded it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. How do we vote? Dodd Shamrock, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kayla, aye.
Okay. All right, I will make a motion. I guess I'm assuming maybe I will probably miss something. So just jump in. Let me know. Okay, I will make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for notice of intent 3070873. That's for School Avenue and 10 School Avenue, map 41, lot 60, Topsfield Garages LLC, with our standard conditions, including the additional special conditions that synthetic fertilizer use be prohibited and that any pesticide use on site will be pursuant to a plan developed by the owner applicant in coordination with the administrator, Jackie. That any automatic irrigation system and future private wells for irrigation use shall not be installed on the site. That the owner will, to the extent reasonably practicable, keep snow storage out of the 100-foot inner riparian zone, and not store snow on site in any resource areas for more than a temporary time period. Is that correct? Okay. That salt and chemical de-icers are not used on the site except with the approval of the conservation administrator.
I think we were going to have some predefined areas that it was going
Okay,
to be
can you
allowed.
guys, I'll pause my motion for a moment. And so not be used in the predefined areas or be used in the predefined areas.
I think that pre-designed pedestrian, that salt and chemical de-icers will only be used in pre-designed or pre-designated pedestrian areas that have been approved by the conservation agent.
Okay, I got that. Thank you for that.
And then adding to that, or with approval of the conservation agent. So if the entire driveway is an ice rink and there's absolutely nothing you can do, Jackie can say, okay, here's an emergency allowance.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense to?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Did I get the snow storage okay though?
I think so.
I thought that was
Okay.
good.
I think the intention's there.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will reconvene my motion. I'm gonna strike what I just said about the use of salt and chemical de-icers, but I will now continue on indicating that salt and chemical de-icers shall only be used in pre-designated pedestrian areas or with the approval of the conservation agent. Okay, and an access and maintenance agreement for the off-site mitigation area shall be submitted to the conservation agent for approval prior to starting work. Monitoring reports shall be submitted to the conservation agent at the end of the next 2 growing seasons following completion of the plantings, with details on which plantings are surviving and any invasive species removal activities that took place during that year. At least 80% survival of both shrubs and trees shall be maintained at the end of the 2-year monitoring period, with replacement plantings installed if necessary to meet the required threshold prior to obtaining a certificate of compliance. I believe
I would
that's
recommend adding conservation posts and markers to be installed subject to conservation agent approval.
and I
You
will
want-
just, somebody have a
Like I said, you
comment?
want to put that 80% on the 80% of trees and 80% of
Yeah, maybe just
Yes.
define that those are separate 80%.
Sure.
exactly. I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will amend my motion to clarify that the survival rate of shrubs be 80% and separately the survival rate of trees be 80%. And I will also, I forgot the, what was the
We
last?
need a break.
Conservation
I
posts
had a
and
trial
markers.
today, so what is it?
Conservation posts and
Okay,
markers.
yes. Thank you, sorry. And also include the requirement that conservation posts of the 4x4 variety be installed on the site upon consultation with the conservation agent as to location. That is my motion. Come on,
I'll second
second it.
Did you finally second it?
Second, too.
Okay, then how do we vote? Dog Shamrock, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresnian, aye.
Ben Kella, aye.
Yay. That's terrific.
Okay, we gotta do one more.
Well, you
We gotta
got
do one more
word.
with this
One more
exact
to
same
go.
language.
It's exactly the same language? Is
So,
it?
so the difference, I think, is, instead of the access and maintenance agreement for the offsite mitigation area, this one just needs the agreement for third-party maintenance of the stormwater and wastewater systems.
Okay, all right, I will try my best. I'm gonna forget something, it's okay. All right, so are we, are we all set?
I
Okay.
think we're all set.
All right, I will make a motion to issue an order of conditions for notice of intent 307-0872 at 10 School Avenue and 35R Main Street. That's map 41 lot 60 and map 41 lot 133 Topsfield Garages LLC. With the standard conditions, including the additional special conditions that the use of synthetic fertilizers be prohibited and the use of pesticides on site be pursuant to a plan implemented upon consultation with the conservation agent. That automatic irrigation systems and future private wells for irrigation use shall not be installed on site. That snow storage shall be kept out of the 100-foot inner riparian zone to the extent practicable, and snow storage will occur for no more than on a temporary basis. That salt and chemical deicers be utilized only in pre-designated pedestrian areas or with the approval of the conservation agent. And that an agreement for third-party maintenance of the stormwater and wastewater systems be submitted to the conservation agent for approval prior to starting work, and that monitoring reports shall be submitted to the conservation agent at the end of the next 2 growing seasons following completion of the plantings, with details on which plantings are surviving and any invasive species removal activities that took place during that year, with at least 80% survival rate of shrubs and 80% survival rate of trees to be maintained at the end of the 2-year monitoring period, with replacement plantings installed if necessary to meet the required threshold prior to obtaining a certificate of compliance, and that conservation markers be installed in locations determined by the conservation agent. And I'm just going to pause my motion for a moment, because if I'm recalling correctly, was there a requirement of the septic system being maintained by a professional?
Stormwater and wastewater
The
need
stormwater,
third
yeah.
party.
Oh, okay. Did I get that in this
Wastewater
one?
includes septic, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
did I-
did. Yes,
I
I
did get
believe
that.
so.
Yes,
Okay.
you did.
All right, then
Okay.
that is my motion.
Okay, so I will second the motion as stated.
And how do we vote? Shamrock, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
And Mahoned, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kayla, aye.
Good luck. I'd like to wish you all good luck with this new project.
Thank you.
And
you.
thank you for all
Thank you so
being
much,
here.
everyone. Thank you.
And I'm sure all of us look forward to trying out your restaurant when it opens and seeing it all. Wow.
We'll be sending out a thing to residents, what days they commit to, Monday lunch, Tuesday dinner. or what-
Ah. Okay,
it's all
I'll check
good.
all the boxes now, okay? I won't have to
Right.
worry about anything.
So we
All
appreciate your help and
Thank you.
for your
Thank you
approach.
very
So,
much
all
for all
good.
your time and patience and whatnot. All right.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Yes,
Two.
you
Take care.
all the same. All right, I have a suggestion. I need a 10-minute break or my knees are going to die. They don't walk around.
Okay. When we return, should we do the enforcement orders because we have people waiting for
Oh,
that, or?
yeah.
Okay. Just,
Yeah.
I know there's a couple things in between now and the enforcement orders. I think just so that
Sure.
people can get to bed, let's do everything that requires people on the call.
I have no problem with that, but can someone make a motion for just,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we pause the April 8th, 2026 meeting of the Conservation Commission at 9:21 to be restarted at 9:30.
I'll
I
second.
second the motion.
And how do we vote? Dodd Shamroth, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresky, aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we reconvene the April 8th, 2026 meeting of the Topsfield Conservation Commission at 9:31 p.m.
I second the motion.
And how do we vote? Dodd Shamroth, aye.
Andrew
Jen
Mulholland, aye.
DeCarlo, aye. Oh, sorry.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresky, aye.
Ben Kayla, aye.
Are we all in?
Yep.
Okay,
Are we losing Dodds?
maybe.
Maybe. Dodds?
Don't do this, Dodds. We need to.
Okay, I guess while we wait for Dodds, do you want to take over, John?
I guess so. All right, so we're gonna run to the enforcement order.
Or should we wait a minute?
Is she coming back?
think
If she
so.
comes back, she can jump in just so we can keep this,
Yep.
train moving down the track. All right, so it sounds like we are going to just take a couple of things out of order, starting with enforcement order 2025-04 for 51 Asbury Street, map 28, lot 4. This is restoration plan review. Is anybody here on behalf of this particular item?
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Oh, here's Todd's. Okay. Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
my name is Justine Fox with Williams and Sparagus. I'm here representing the property owner, Troy Turner, who is here as well tonight. So this was continued from the last meeting. There was a few items that we needed to address and update on the plan before continuing. So I'll just run through what is updated since the last meeting. I will share my screen so we
Good.
have something to look at while I talk. Let me know if you can all see this.
Mhm.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So yeah, I kind of just highlighted the only things that were added to the plot plan part of the restoration plan. So in blue, we've outlined the Topsfield conservation markers, which are going to be installed along the edge of the lawn, right in front of the restoration area. So 5 conservation markers shown in blue here. And then in green, we kind of just highlighted the areas where additional invasive species management will be taking place outside of the restoration area where the clearing occurred. So in addition to those 2 things, we have updated the seed mix specifications to New England Wetland Plants Incorporated seed mixes, which include more local ecotypes. We've included wording on a minimum of 2 years of environmental monitoring with yearly reports submitted to the Topsfield Conservation Commission. We have received an outline from Mary Ellen Dixon, who is the person the property owner retained to do the invasive species management work, as well as some of the native plant installation work. So she's provided an outline of a timeline for her anticipated schedule. And we adjusted a few things based on our conversations with her as well. She wanted to emphasize that it may not be possible to remove the entire root system of the invasive plants in the area, especially some of the species like bittersweet that have really extensive root systems, and that they may be intertwined with native species. And in that case, it would be better to just leave them intact and continue to cut and remove them until the plant dies off and the root system remains. So she wanted to make sure that that was emphasized, that it might not be possible to remove the entire root system. She also wanted to emphasize that if chemical treatment is required, it should be done in the fall after a season of manual removal. This way we can see if any other invasive species that were not identified when we were out there in January appear on site, and get a good idea of how how the site is reacting to manual removal, and that she will not be retained for chemical treatment of any invasive species. So we will, if it comes to that in the fall, after a whole season of manual removal, then Topsfield Conservation will be provided with a very specific plan on the specific chemical treatments that will take place on this property before anything happens. See if I missed anything. I think that sums up the major changes. Jackie, let me know if I'm missing anything. Troy and I are here to answer any more questions that you may have. Thank you.
Jackie?
Thank you, Justine. I thought the plan was very thorough and addressed all of our comments from the last meeting. My main question to the commission was about what kind of vegetation coverage we would require. The plans suggested 75% coverage of vegetation. I would recommend higher than that for just having ground cover of vegetation in general, and potentially also for the tree plantings. I know the live stakes are more difficult to measure the success, but I thought we could at least set the commission's preferred threshold for overall plant coverage, which I think should be pretty much most of the area that's for restoration, and then for the tree plantings, which there are 6 of, right?
Yeah, 6 trees.
So after 2 years of monitoring, how much should survive? And then maybe also asking for the tree saplings to be at least 3 feet tall, as our tree policy requires for regular tree planting.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. In my opinion, for the 6 trees, I think that after 2 years, there should be 6 trees there. So I would like to have 100% survival rate. Obviously, looking to the rest of the commission for their input on that, but I feel pretty strongly about that. I think 3 feet is pretty reasonable to get some. Or little. I don't think that those are too crazy. Obviously, if you want to go bigger, that's great. But I think that's feels like a reasonable minimum for me. And then in terms of coverage, other than the 6 trees, pretty much everything is going to be seed mixes and live staking, right?
Yeah, and plugs if necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were thinking it would be more of a % coverage of native species specifically versus how you usually do individual plant survivorship. I think it's such a big area that it would just make sense to do % coverage, but
yeah,
open to more than 75%, whatever you think is fair.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of 75% coverage, that's an entire quarter of it is just bare or invasives. Now, it's entirely possible that the invasives are going to be so bad that, they are that bad. I guess I'd like to shoot for higher than 75% coverage. It's probably unrealistic to say 100, but I don't know, 90, 95%. Like, I guess, what does the rest of the commission feel on that?
Kind of, is there a time frame? Is this 75% achieved?
I think it's at 2 years.
At 2 years.
75 doesn't bother me so much because they're replacing the weeping willows, which are going to be gigantic if they survive. I don't know how that'll affect the rest of the year. I mean, we're looking at understory basically.
That's a good point.
So it doesn't bother me so much, but I do have a question because aren't we doing what? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the proper terminology for
live staking.
Live staking, okay. And so live staking, though, wouldn't be a 3-foot tree, would it?
No, it would.
Yeah.
Early.
Yeah. So that 3-foot tall sapling thing would not apply to those particular items then.
Agreed. Yeah. It would only be for the 6 purchased trees.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to distinguish between the 6 trees and then the live stakes, and that's totally not in the same category, right? Just to be clear.
Yep.
Okay. All right, just being clear. Okay. I don't know. Anybody else have any strong feelings?
Weren't for
That
the
is
amount of
quite a bit to be. That's quite a bit to be bare, maybe 85%. I could go with, I mean, who's gonna get out there and measure it exactly, but I would like to
mean,
see.
yeah. I guess
When you look at it, it ought to be mostly covered.
I agree. But if it's mostly covered with invasive still, then I'm not sure that I would count that as a
that doesn't
success.
work. No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm not implying that that's what's going to, I'm just,
You think the little things are gonna come in and go yummy, yummy?
I don't know. And so, I mean, this is the question. And then Jen
Yeah.
brings up a good question are we
You
talking
don't
purely
know.
about understory or?
Yeah, no, you
So-
don't know.
Yeah, I can't imagine like every little inch of this thing is going to be covered with a plant, you know what I
No.
mean?
Yeah,
But it's going to
100%.
like spread, right? So, and you got to give it time to do that. And that's the difference with going with a percentage versus, a certain number of plantings, which are that's kind of hard to quantify,
Yeah.
the percentage.
That's what I'm talking about. To make it 85% just means a
Well,
small percent.
85 is, I think, like slightly easier numbers than 85.
Okay, go
I think
ahead.
it's easier to count trees, right? Just say, okay, counting trees versus
Yeah.
coverage. I don't know. I mean, Jackie, do you have any perspective on this? Like, what? I don't know.
I don't know. I guess I was picturing like with 75% coverage, I was picturing 25% like completely bare of
Yeah, me
plantings,
too.
which would be bad. But if it's invasives, I mean, that's difficult to measure. I think most important that it's covered with plants and that invasives are mostly being removed. But
So we see 75% coverage with native vegetation?
Yeah.
Is that a,
so 100% tree survival after the 2 years.
Of the purchase trees, and not every live stake needs to survive.
Yes.
Of the 6 trees that are replacing the ones that were cut down. Okay. Yeah, and I'd love to say we could get 100% coverage. Well, I think we can get 100% coverage of plants. Whether they're all native is going to be the really tricky part, like you guys mentioned. So just the amount of invasives
Well,
that were out there.
Could it be a deal where after, the first year you see, oh, so much hasn't come up, so you reseed it? Replant some of it?
Yeah, that can definitely be a discussion after the first year monitoring and submitting that report based on what Jackie and the commission feels would be appropriate if it doesn't seem to be reestablishing correctly.
right? But the open question is what's our target percentage for the replacement native plants? We've heard 75, we've heard 85, 80 is in the middle.
Natives of the covered greenery seems realistic to me. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know what the ratio of current bare space to current invasive space is right now, but you might already be at 80% if you just seed in the bare areas.
Yeah, and there really weren't too many bare areas
Okay.
out there. Most of the root balls were left intact, and there was a lot of like the clumps of grasses that you see in the floodplains and riverfront areas that were still intact but just mowed. So we're hoping that a lot of those are native and they do come back. So we're really not looking at as much bare ground as you would see in a site that was filled or like completely tilled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, I think 80% seems very, I mean, after 2 years of intense invasive removal, I think 80% is realistic, but also pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree
How are
that there
how are
weren't
we-
any bare areas, but the concern is more that if invasives are removed, that it's replaced with something, not just left bare.
Yeah, I think there should be no bare areas. Like that's like we're looking for 100% coverage,
Mhm.
but 80% of them being natives.
Yeah, and those 6 trees will go in initially, and then as stuff starts to grow back and we realize if it's invasive or native, it will be removed as needed. And the plan's kind of to fill in those spaces as the invasives are taken out. So, and the seed mix hopefully will help with that as well.
I guess, did we want to set a deadline for the plantings to go in? Or, I don't know if it was in the narrative that there was a proposed time to put them in.
Troy reminds me, I think Mary Ellen wanted to install at the end of May, the
So
trees.
this planting season.
Yes.
Oh, right,
We're
there is
hoping
a
to
schedule.
start
Yep, I
ASAP.
see. There was a schedule provided, so we can, I think that's agreeable.
Just defer to that.
To go by that.
Okay.
And just come back to us if there needs to be a change in schedule.
Yep, will do.
Seems like you've addressed all the questions that we presented to you last time.
Okay.
All right, you want me to go for a motion here?
Yep.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right, I will make a motion that we amend Enforcement Order 2025-04 for 51 Asbury Street, that's map 28, lot 4, to require implementation of the restoration plan as revised and presented this evening, in accordance with that revised plan and the schedule provided in the narrative, and require 2 years of monitoring reports and invasive plant management following completion of the plantings and live staking with a requirement of 80% coverage of native species in the area with a survival rate of 100% for the 6 purchased trees to be planted. And I'm going to, let's see here, and that the trees to be planted be at least 3 feet tall. And let me see. I think just plantings. I think that's it. That's my motion. Did I miss
And
anything?
it was 80% vegetation.
Native vegetation, yeah.
Yeah, it was 100% vegetation coverage with 80% native.
Oh, okay. Let
Oh,
me
what?
amend.
Oh, wait a
Oh,
minute.
okay. Let me amend my motion to.
Or not,
include-
that's my understanding.
What was that? Okay, let me amend my motion to include 80% coverage with 100% native vegetation to be. Oh, okay. Let me amend this again.
Yeah.
Wait, no.
It was 100% coverage with 80% natives. You just, I think,
Oh,
swapped the numbers.
I didn't think we were doing 100% coverage.
Well,
We
there
are?
shouldn't be any
Just-
bare ground.
Just with plant vegetation, yeah.
Oh, okay. 100% coverage with 80% native vegetation.
Well, okay, maybe we back up here for a second. make sure
Yeah,
we're
I
on the
think
same
so.
page.
I don't think we got it right.
So
I will suspend my motion.
my understanding was that we are, one of our highest objectives here is no bare ground. But some of that grows back in, even, I hope that the invasive management goes as well as possible. I think if after 2 years it's 80% natives and there's only a couple invasive still poking in there, I think that we consider that a success. And so that's 100% coverage, but with at least 80% of the coverage being native species. That was my intention with that, but I'll rest my case there.
That makes sense.
I like it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds good.
All right. Then I will amend my motion to include that after the 2 years, there will be 100% coverage with at least 80% of native species.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
And I'll say who wants to vote. Dodd Shamroth, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kayla, aye.
Okay, good. Well, good luck. We look forward to hearing the reports about the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, thanks, everybody. Just one quick question. Do we need to wait for an amended enforcement order to be issued before work can start out there?
I mean, I don't know. I can prioritize this to make sure I get it out as soon as possible.
Yeah. Do our standard conditions have a pre-activity meeting anyway?
Enforcement orders don't have standard conditions,
Oh, all right. But
so, I mean, I'd probably wouldn't mind doing a pre-activity meeting. That might be helpful, but yeah, I'll prioritize getting this out as soon as possible if time is a concern.
Okay, great. I know they just wanted to get started this spring as soon as possible.
Oh, good.
We'll be on the lookout for that enforcement order and we can chat about a site walk then. So. Okay, yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thanks and good night.
Thanks, Justine.
Thanks for coming. Good night.
Thank you.
All right. People is in my way. Next we have a violation at 110 Perkins Road, map 51, lot 10, unauthorized activities in wetlands resource area. Jackie, I know you have information on this one.
Yeah, so yesterday I received a complaint about possible wetlands violations at 110 Perkins Row. I drove by and observed soil disturbance, construction equipment, and large piles of granite blocks, and what appeared to be damage to a tree in the front yard. So I returned to the office and confirmed with my maps that this was within bylaw riverfront area. The property had previous RDNI applications. So I was able to find the phone number and got in touch with the property owner, Chris, who I think is on this call. And he explained that he was working on, I mean, I'll let Chris explain on his own, but that he was doing the work, and he was intending to improve the property and take down trees out front. I'll let him say more, but I sent a violation letter. I sent him an email copy, and that was asking him to contact me, which he did. Stop work other than potentially installing erosion controls, and to attend a conservation meeting to discuss with us. So Chris, do you want to go ahead and
Yeah.
tell us about this?
Hi, thanks, Jackie. So, a little bit of context. We're moving out of 110 Perkins Row. We just bought 207 Riley Bridge Road. The house has been vacant for a little bit, and I intend on doing some work coming up over the next year, probably before we are able to sell it. But I've been amassing some equipment and materials, secondhand stuff, basically, it's on the property. I believe what's the buffer zone? Is it 200 yards?
So in your case, there's riverfront area, which is 200 feet from the stream.
Okay, intermittent stream?
So it's considered perennial under the town bylaws.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's a bylaw perennial stream,
Got it.
or it has bylaw riverfront area is the term for it.
Got it. I've heard
There's also a buffer zone in the back, but the front is within the riverfront.
the river's in the back. Well, it's not really a river, right? But it's in the back.
Yeah, I know, it's just called riverfront, even if
Yeah,
it's a
right,
stream.
I got you, yeah. I've been there, this is my father's house. I've been there for about 35 years. We've heard it called a bunch of different things in the time being, but basically the lawn out front. So I've driven the equipment over the lawn, and the lawn has been torn up. The stuff out there it has no roots either. It's like, if you look, it needs to be cleaned up. I don't like to leave it like that for my neighbors. But we've had some stuff going on. It's been hectic. Dealing with both of our parents and my health stuff. So we intend on cleaning up, but the problem is now if I can't move the equipment without disturbing the front lawn, I don't know how to go about that. The granite blocks that are out there, are intended for a rock wall, potentially a raised septic. I'm talking with somebody about that now for the sale. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good, you know, like me personally, if it was my neighbor, I wouldn't mind, but, and I've spoken with my neighbors to make sure that they're okay. But I intend on getting it cleaned up, basically. As far as the grass goes, I don't know how to approach that. And I feel like, you know, if a silt sock is something that would be beneficial, then why not just do that? I do intend in the next year on having a building permit, coming to see you guys about, you know, possible changes and what we plan to do. It's just still in the planning stages.
Jackie, did you happen to be able to take any photos of what's going
Yes.
on? Just to,
I have some.
Yeah, I'll pull up the photos.
Yeah,
This was the great all?
It's not a grade at all, but it's so there's a boom lift. Okay, actually, this is the other thing. This boom lift is stuck in the mud, and that's part of the.
That's what I
disturbance.
thought, yeah.
Yeah, it's stuck in the mud, and I can't get it out. It's it's a 25,000 pound machine, and it's.
yeah, I feel your pain.
There was a mound of snow there. It's right next to the road, and all the with the snow melt and the rain that we had over the last 2 weeks, it's just it's there. It's still there. Yeah, and I didn't want to mess with it today. You know, after I spoke with Jackie yesterday, you know. So in this picture, you guys would know better than me, but so basically to the left of this picture would be my neighbor's septic, right? It's right on the roadway next to that pole. That goes back probably about, I don't know, 50 feet or so. And then there's a couple of sheds. And then to the left of that, I think is where you really get into the wetlands. Like that's the part that I feel like would be the most beneficial, like protection wise. But you know, you guys are the experts. I feel like it's silt sock there. And honestly, I have no problem just going around the whole backyard with it because it's some, I don't know, do these things have a lifespan?
Okay,
This-
yeah, I'm just
this-
showing the other photo where you can sort of see the
Yeah, those are large.
granite blocks that I was referring to. Yeah, so it's, I mean,
That's so.
the tree also looks like it's been damaged maybe by equipment. It looks fresh.
Yeah, so all of these trees we'd like to take down. So could you zoom out again? So over on the left, if you catch it, there's 3 or 4 that are completely dead. They've been dead for probably 10 years. I mean, there's not even any bark on them. They abut the neighbor's septic, and I think that might have sort of been a nail in the coffin for them. But they've been going for a while, and all these trees have been dying. So like I said, I've been here for about 35 years, and we haven't had like strong winds like, oh, my phone's gonna die. We haven't had strong winds like before, but it's amazing to me that things come down, and it's sort of like they rely upon each other. So we've, you know, we like having them, and you know, we've lived with them. It can be difficult hanging over the driveway, you know, cleaning sap off all their cars. I think my wife's car was known as the car with all the sap on it for a while. But if we're one of the few houses left on Perkins Road, it has the red pines out front and the white pines. But the ones that are completely dead, honestly, they're a hazard.
Yeah, I'm aware that a lot of red pines have been dying in this area. This is right across from the entrance to the Audubon
That's correct.
Sanctuary, and I know they've had a lot of red pine die off.
Yeah. And like this area has never, no part of this area has ever seen fertilizer or salt or, you know, we don't care really about, you know, having a nice lawn. So I think it actually takes, you know, not having a root system for the lawn makes it just all the more susceptible to being damaged. Like there's, you know, I mean, there's a Corvette in the front yard, right? It's just to get out of the way. And even that has sort of damaged the grass.
So, Mr. Moody, not to cut you off, but
Go
it
ahead.
sounds like
Please do.
you have plans or semi-plans for this house, right? And you've got this equipment and you've started to engage, but your property,
But okay.
well, I mean, you've got your machinery stuck in the mud and the yard's completely ripped
Well,
up.
I
So
own it.
it's like,
I bought the machinery, right? But I haven't done anything with the machinery. I just,
okay, but you're indicating here that you want to take down trees. It sounds to me like you need to figure out what you want to do, right?
right.
And
So I came from the planning
consult.
stage. That's what I mean.
But you're kind of not in the planning stages because you have the equipment on site and you ripped up your yard. So you see, you're kind of, even though from your perspective, it looks like you're in the planning stages, most people they, consult with the Conservation Commission or Jackie. They have plans of what they want to do, and then they come in with that plan and they get the relief that they need, and they have, a process to follow. So now here we are trying to figure out what to do, but it sounds like you're
Yeah.
still trying to also figure out what you want to do, right?
Well, when you say most people, I mean, have you ever had anyone come in and ask you about what piece of equipment to purchase before a project? Probably not. I mean, so I'm a contractor. I feel like it's a little different, and also just my life situation. I know it doesn't, change anything, but like, I had a bad business deal, and there's a bunch of other stuff. So
Yeah, so let's just pause, right? What I'm saying here is let's just take a pause because you got the big machinery there, and now
yeah,
the yard's all ripped up and there's mud going everywhere. And you're a little bit, to be honest, you're talking about future plans with the house, which is not in front of us. You're talking about things that you want to do now with the house, which is not properly in front of us. So it's time to take a moment, pause, and let's kind of figure out how to resolve this because when people come to us and they've done something kind of like what you've done here, the next step typically is to have to put together a restoration plan to go consult with an engineer and literally come back to us with a plan to restore, right? Or
yeah,
to
I'm aware.
seek permitting to do what you want to do, right? So,
which is very soon, right? To seek permitting. I mean, I'm here because you guys requested that I be here, right?
Yep.
And I understand it's within the buffer zone. It's my entire property. So, I mean, anything outside the driveway is susceptible to me being called
Yep,
down here.
that's right.
Yep.
That's
So,
correct.
and
So then instead
and
of
part of it is just the weather we've had recently too, the last few
yeah,
weeks.
so it's not a good time for you to go when it's like extremely wet and everything's melting, and then you run the risk of digging up the yard and putting mud everywhere, and then erosion. So that's why you're here tonight.
Yeah.
So number one, I think the enforcement order, what we're going to vote on is most likely to issue an enforcement order to tell you to stop, to just stop what you're doing, stop moving, stop moving earth, and then the next question is you got to figure out what it is you want to do and because otherwise you're just going to have to stop or restore it. Does that make sense?
It does, Jennifer. But the thing I struggle with is, it has been drying up a little bit, and I'd love to clean up the yard, but
You got to get permit. That's the bottom line, right? You got to come to us and you got to
I
get
can do that.
permission.
I can do that, but what would I put on it? It's gonna be.
Well, what are you going to do?
I'm gonna do a lot of work on the house.
Okay, so
As a
then the
homeowner,
first
not as a contractor, right? Just as a homeowner.
okay, so if your property is within a resource area
Yep.
and you want to take down trees and you want to move things around and you need to do
course.
something to the house, then you got to come to the Conservation Commission and fill out the appropriate paperwork, pay the fee, submit the
Yeah.
plans. And even though you are a contractor, that's wonderful, you still got to do the right thing, right?
Of course, and I want to, just to be clear. So what if I were to come, could I pull a permit for the trees to start with that? Would that be, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we got to deal with the mess that's on the ground right now because you can't just throw a piece of heavy equipment and drag it around the whole site. It doesn't work that way, right?
but you take the
Andrew,
trees
you
and.
look like you want to say something.
Yeah.
Me?
Andrew, do you look like you want to say
Well, no,
something?
I think we just for future work like the trees, yes, you're going to need a pull permit. But right now we have
Yeah.
bare soil that is eroding into resource areas. A machine stuck in a pit of mud. So like that, we have to stabilize that. And that can
Right.
happen concurrently with you requesting from us the ability to take down trees.
Right, at least
But,
I
like,
have a permit going forward, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but like we need to get that bare soil stabilized because it is
Got it.
still very wet out, and that is just going to be runoff and get into resource areas. So like we kind of are going at two prongs here. I know you want to do work on the house, and you can request that of us, and
Yeah.
that'll be totally fine. But we also need to
Of course.
at the same time be very proactive in stabilizing the site as it is right now.
Of course. So would that be something that you would tell me, or would I have to seek that information from somewhere else?
Well, you can always go to the Conservation Commission office and say, hey, I want to take down these 6 trees, right?
Which is what I was
And then,
gonna do, right.
yeah, so and then Jackie can say, okay, well, that's going to require you to file this paperwork and pay this fee and submit a plan, right? And then
Of
you're
course.
going to have to come to us, get permission, and then not only do you get permission, but also the way that you conduct this activity is going to be it's going to be there's going to be conditions in place. You can't just do it the way you want to do it. You might be able to do it super fast and wonderfully with your machine, but if that's going to cause erosion on the site and create more adverse conditions, we're not going to be able to permit that. So
I don't want to do that, right, yeah.
okay, fair enough. Yeah, we get that.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just a homeowner trying to. Right.
We totally get that. So
Yeah.
so Jackie, in terms of this, it sounds like, I think an enforcement order is probably proper to issue so that the work gets like Andrew said, the site gets stabilized, right?
Yeah, the
Um,
biggest concern right now is that we're going to get more big rain events, and there is bare soil. So, that's the highest priority is getting in erosion control and then reseeding the lawn. I'm not a wetlands professional.
Yeah.
There might be more to it than that, and so I think usually in these cases you'll have to consult a wetlands engineer to come in.
So, just because I don't understand, if someone were to come, sorry, if someone were to come take the trees down, they would be able to be on the lawn, or like this?
We don't typically allow machinery to be on the lawn while removing trees. We ask for it to be removed using a crane from the driveway for tree removals, usually, or from the roadway.
Would
If
sorry.
So
no,
if it can't be reached from the driveway or roadway, using normal equipment, it needs to be by a crane, and that's our typical requirement for tree removals.
So, okay, now, if, I'm just trying to understand completely, so, this will be subject to Title V at one point, because you're trying to sell it? Right. Most likely the septic will probably be in the front, it's really the furthest place away from the resource area, and others down the road have been that way. That will all be taken up at that point, right? And the proper material will be brought in to do that. Would it, like a silt sock or a hay bale fence or something along the riverfront suffice? I mean, I'd be happy to do the whole thing.
So we generally will have, I don't want to say this. That's where a wetlands professional that you would need to retain would come in, or we would need to consult with Jackie as another wetlands professional.
Jackie's a wetland.
I don't know how recently your wetlands have been delineated, and so we don't necessarily know, what the most important angles to collect runoff are. So,
Jackie? Would that be, Jackie, is that something we could, like, if I got a permit for tree removal, would the delineation be something that we could do?
So I don't do delineations for permits. For something that's just like if it's a removal of a hazardous tree or a few of them, I can judge where the wetlands are
Yeah,
roughly without doing the delineation, just to determine what resource area it's in and approximately where the wetland is. But and I can even go in and decide where I sort of think the boundary is, but it's not an approved boundary.
right.
To get an approved boundary, which you would need for any project that's large enough or significant enough to warrant a notice of intent permit, that would require a delineation to be done by a professional that you hired.
Okay.
So if you're removing more than a certain amount of trees, that triggers you needing a notice of intent.
What is that?
If you're building, if you're building structures, changing the house, building a septic system, those things require notice of intent.
Right.
For example, I mean, the there are different criteria that I'm not gonna get into the details, but
Yeah, it's okay. So the fact that it's being done in stages, does that mess that up? Or is that sort of?
So you can come to us with multiple requests. I mean, if you, obviously we'd love to get everything all done at once. But if you don't know, then yeah, I mean, things can come in stages. But I think we just need to back up for a second though. What's in front of us right now is an enforcement order. And you technically speaking have not submitted any of these other permitting requests to us. So what's on our current table right now is dealing with the enforcement order. And part of your response to that can be preparing some of these other permitting items. But we need to, I think, deal with what is physically happening on the site right now. And then we move forward there. And obviously I'll look to the rest of the commission for their opinions on what I just said.
This Jackie is in the office.
So right now for me, my priorities are stabilizing using erosion control, probably some sort of reseeding of the lawn, and you consulting with a wetlands professional to come up with a restoration plan.
Okay.
Gotta get the equipment out of there too, right?
Yes.
The whole restoration plan part is the part I struggle with, but okay, I understand what you're saying. So, you know, okay, I had limited resources.
And part of the restoration plan might be that you're going to, do some of these other permitting things. Like I want to take these trees out, and it makes more sense to take these trees out before I do X, X or Y. Like that'll all come next. Right now, it's about stabilization and beginning a consulting process with a wetlands professional.
And would best case scenario be that I reseed it and do the silt fence? Because is that something I could just do and then not have to do the other part, or do I have to do the other part in order to?
So I don't feel comfortable answering that as someone who is not a wetlands professional. I don't know how much the area was disturbed, so I can't answer that for you in terms of would that be sufficient to restore it.
You've been run over with a lawnmower regularly for 35 years. I know that much.
I hear you. I'm not, as like a realistic person, I absolutely hear you. I can't comment on that because I'm not a wetlands professional.
I get you. But it is the realistic part of it, right? I mean, it's like when it's muddy out, even the lawnmower will sink into it, right? And,
I'm with you.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not someone who's all about their lawn or anything. It's like we try to keep it natural, and right, we kept the trees and all the stuff. We're just trying to do what's right. Whatever I got to do.
yeah, I think it wouldn't have to be lawn. It could be a native species of ground cover. But I think since it was lawn before, it can be either lawn or something that's even more beneficial to conservation, like native plants. But
I agree with that, but shouldn't that be at the end of all of it, considering that?
Well, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. But the problem is that you don't have any of those other permits in front of us right now. So at the end of it doesn't exist to us.
No, I completely understand. That's why it's different, right? Because it's the homeowner doing it in stages versus. Like I said, I've been in electrician for 25 years. I've been in the trades. This is a different scenario, right? So I don't know how to proceed with it. And like I said,
we get, Mr. Moody, we get homeowners constantly that do things. They take things into their own hands, and then they get an enforcement order, and then we set them straight, and they have a restoration plan, and maybe they file some permitting to do their project, and then it's within the purview of the commission. So right now it's 10:15 at night, and I know we've kept you waiting a long time as well. So I think at this point, what we probably should do is vote on an enforcement order, which sounds harsh, right? But it's going to tell you that you need to get the site stabilized, that you need to consult likely with a wetland scientist and or file a request for permitting. So this will trigger you to come into the office or call Jackie and come up with a plan to resolve this. Okay. So this will, this will kind of start the process.
All right, I like that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So any other discussion by the board?
I think it's pretty common for an enforcement order to say either submit a restoration plan or file a notice of intent by a specified deadline, so that's an option.
Right.
In addition to adding requirements to stabilize the site in the short term.
And cease and desist
And
from
cease and desist
any
is a typical
activity.
thing to check off on the enforcement order.
Okay,
I mean, even like walking in my yard when it's muddy, it's like, you know, I'm not gonna move any equipment or any cars or anything. It just, I don't know.
yeah, but
No,
Mr.
great
Mooney,
things happen.
Yeah.
I will say that this is bigger than.
Right. No, I understand. I understand completely. I'm not.
Put it this way, though, you know, now we know that this has happened at your site, right? So the best thing for you to do would be to stabilize the site, not conduct any more work, because it's just going to get harder and harder to kind of back out of that position, and you'll have voluntarily put yourself in it, right? So
Yeah, I don't want
yes,
to do that.
it's
just wanna be
mushy
quiet.
out there, but
Yeah.
what has occurred so far wasn't a result of people walking on it. It was the result of
Yeah.
equipment
understand.
disturbance, right?
I understand that. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So let's move forward, and this will be really clear enforcement order that you get. And if you have questions, you can, call the office. I recommend you call the office rather than show up, because Jackie is often on site visits. And you'll get this in the mail, right, Jackie? This enforcement order will give you some clear instructions, okay? And then that's going to be your starting point from there. It'll tell you what you need to do.
Yeah, I got it. I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I understand.
No, and we listen, it's not that you're not important, but it doesn't make sense to continue to kind of talk about what you
No,
want to do
exactly. Right, exactly.
until you put a plan into place, right?
Exactly. That was my plan.
Okay, all right. So now you're here. So I guess any discussion on this? Any other discussion from the commission?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty high priority for erosion control, so I'd like to see the deadline on that probably within the next week.
Can I put seed down? Would that be helpful? It is all the grass.
I'll defer to Jackie on the best practice for that. I would assume yes.
Talk about it tomorrow. I can. Can I talk to Jackie?
Yeah,
about
no,
it?
I think it would be helpful to put seed down to stabilize it.
Right, that seems sensible, right? Okay.
Yeah, but we still need erosion control.
Yeah, totally. If it's a high priority, then why not, right?
All right.
I'll let
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Jen take back over.
All right. So erosion control, it's within 1 week from the date of the order. Anything, we need a deadline for either restoration plan or filing of notice of intent.
I'll do that.
So I'd like an update at least by our next meeting on what your plans are.
What is that?
So our next meeting is May 20th.
Okay.
And basically whether you're going to pursue the restoration plan route or the NOI route.
I'll talk to a scientist about it and figure out.
Okay.
And then after that, I think probably at least if they can have if you end up going the restoration plan route and they can have one ready by May 20th,
yeah,
that's great. But
Okay.
I think we at a bare minimum need to know what your plans are by the next meeting. And I'll look to the rest of the commission on whether they agree with me on that.
Yeah,
That's fine.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to cause any problems. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're not trying to make this difficult. Like we want this to be a smooth process for everyone.
No, I understand.
Yeah. We just got to go through the milestones here. Okay. So erosion control within 1 week from the date of the order. Applicant to provide an update by the next meeting, which is May 20th, as to whether or not they will be filing a notice of intent or a restoration plan. And then I guess at that May 20th meeting, we will establish additional deadlines. Does that sound fair?
Reasonable.
Yeah, and I think along with the erosion control, I think reseeding in between now and the next meeting is realistic. It might take a little bit longer to do that, so maybe that's within 2 weeks, but I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that is some sort of erosion control, I would think, but I'll talk to you about that, right? Yeah. Okay. Whatever I can do, that's fine.
Any other comments, concerns, issues?
I think so. I think that'll get us at least to the next meeting.
I appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming and staying so late. I know that it's tough to be at the end of the agenda.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Good night.
Okay. Oh,
So,
okay,
Jackie,
so I have to
We gotta
Did we
issue,
vote on
make
the
a
motion?
yeah.
no, not yet, not yet.
Oh,
Okay.
Do I reach
I
out to you,
will,
Jackie?
okay,
Yeah.
just pause for just a second, okay, because we're gonna do a motion. I will make a motion to issue an enforcement order in connection with 110 Perkins Road, map 51, lot 10. Ordering the owner to implement erosion controls within 1 week from the date of the written order, and also to reseed the lawn area that's been disturbed within 2 weeks of the date of the order, and to provide an update by our next meeting on May 20th, 2026, as to whether the owner will be filing a notice of intent for proposed work at the site, or a restoration plan. And that additional deadlines will be established based on that information at our, let me see.
May
I guess
20th?
at that May 20th meeting really is when additional deadlines will be established, I think.
That's what we said, right?
So this is for Ben. I'm not you actually use the language issue enforcement order at the beginning of that.
I
think
did
you just
a
jumped
motion
right
to
into
issue
the
an enforcement
condition.
order.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I apologize. Then I'll
Yeah.
second that motion.
That's okay, okay, okay.
you seconded it, right?
Yes, I
Yep.
second the motion.
Okay. All right, and how do we vote? Shamrock, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kella, aye.
All right.
So I'll be sending out the enforcement order as soon as I have it prepared,
Okay.
and you can contact me with any questions about it.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
I do, thank you.
Good
Well,
night.
everything will work out and you'll be able to
I
do
know.
what you
Yeah.
want to do. We'll make it work.
Okay. Good night
Thank you.
now.
Right.
Okay. All right, next we have a vote to release an escrow for 101 High Street for the peer review.
So this was actually 10 High Street.
Did I read it wrong? Sorry.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
okay.
10 High Street.
So
Okay.
the town accountant discovered that there are peer review funds still in escrow from this order of conditions from several years ago. The peer review has long ago been completed. I reached out to Heidi, the former conservation agent, who said that she thinks the funds are leftovers because the commission used some but not all of the funds. She recommended we return the funds to get them off the books. It's possible they'll come back for future work, but at that point they should do a new peer review agreement if there's ever a new notice of intent.
Sounds good.
Looking for a motion to release the escrow.
I'll make a motion that we release the escrow for 10 High Street peer review. Associated DEP number 307-0832, returning the funds to the applicant.
I second the motion.
Okay, how do we vote on this? Shamrock, aye.
You're muted, Jen. Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kella, aye.
Yay. Okay. Next is a vote to approve the draft of the 2026 open space and recreation plan. Did we all get a chance to read that?
Yeah. Do we have a deadline? Because I'd like more time. It's a 70-something page document.
78.
Okay. Like a little more time to look it over?
I don't know if we have enough time. I think they were asking for a response soon. Let me see if I can check what the deadline was. I can just check real quick.
It was like May
But
9th.
the open space
Yeah, it was
committee,
sometime it was May.
the open space committee was requiring a letter of review from the Conservation Commission, and I'm happy to draft that letter if you agree to it based on your feedback. Maybe, Maureen, if you have feedback, we could make the motion contingent on that I include any of your feedback in the draft letter. But let's see.
Has everybody else had a chance to read it?
I read it.
Yeah, I read it.
Okay, then I
Okay.
can just recuse myself. And I won't, and I'll read it, but this way I'm
Jen,
not.
did you read it?
I did, and
Peter did not.
So what I did was actually I could share it. I did like a whole AI review of it.
Oh.
To summarize it, I'm embracing the AI. So, basically I will just, it's basically just stated goals for
Yep.
the community of not to repeat anything that everybody else has read, but stated goals of the community with respect to, I guess, open space really, and trying to maintain trails, maintain conservation area, and then the overall gloss is to kind of all about promoting the rural character of Topsfield. Like that was the number one priority of anybody that weighed in on this, which also kind of had some snob zoning implications as well. But that's another for another debate. I mean, I love the rural Topsfield, but there is a housing crunch. But anyway, I'm obviously I'm getting tired. So basically, it just there's not much to it, to be honest, Maureen. It's really just like we want to keep Topsfield rural, and so we want to promote these various things, and there are certain tools at our disposal as a community to promote these goals, including conservation restrictions and getting land that's, kind of like greenbelt land, that kind of thing, the zoning piece of it. So I didn't feel like it was in any way, it didn't really require us to do anything, right,
It was
Jack?
also very educational, I thought, Jen.
It is educational. It is educational. And I know I'm sounding very it's tough. It's tough. I love the rural part of Topsfield, but then there's the other aspects of it that, we kind of live in a bubble here a little bit.
But as a
But,
conservation commission, how do we affect it, right? And
Yes.
that I didn't see much in there from that
really
aspect.
nothing. Yeah, there was sort of this, I guess this sort of overarching theme of the Ipswich River watershed is this critical resource area. It's under stress because of climate change and various factors, and water supply is going to be. Honestly, I think it just more or less identified these things and
Yeah.
not much else. And no disdain towards the people that drafted it. I think it's important to have these documents, but I didn't see it as requiring us to do anything.
Nothing
Yeah,
actionable
so-
from our end.
So I just checked the email from Martha and Melissa, and they said that the old open space and recreation plan expired in February, and they're hoping to submit the plan as soon as possible, but they're required to provide letters of review from the town boards and committees as a condition for submission and approval. So I do think it's pretty important we provide, it looks like it's just a letter of review. I did read the report cover to cover, and it did have a lot of details about the various ecological communities. At the end, I made a few comments just saying it looked like it was missing a few words in some of those parts at the end, but otherwise I thought it looked good. I mean, the goal is just to capture the community feedback, the results of the surveys and the information sessions that they had. I oversaw the open space and recreation plan process in a different town where I worked before, and you basically put out a survey, you have public forums, you get input from boards and committees and write up a plan, and it's required to include certain things. And a lot of what's in there is dependent on the input that's been submitted. But I thought they did a good job of incorporating all of the things they needed to. And I thought the survey results were pretty interesting. A very high percentage of people in Topsfield said they wanted a restaurant in town, which I was surprised how
Yes.
high of a percentage that was.
I had to laugh
it's
at that one myself.
I'm surprised there's that much agreement on anything. But
And I thought it was interesting that they put Wheatlands Hill down as one of Topsfield's recreation areas.
Where's that?
Oh, the sledding hill?
Oh,
Yes, the
okay.
sledding hill. Up from the fairgrounds on the right,
Yeah.
going south.
Does it help get grants or anything like that? Like, what is that the point
I
of it?
think it's important for grants for us to have the plan. I honestly don't know the details of that, like which grants, but it's one of those things like the town master plan that we're expected to have up to date and renew every 5 years, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so basically we're deferring to the people that put the plan together, solicited the data, and then produced the plan. So I think we could vote on it because I think it's due. You said by the 19th or the 9th?
They didn't give me a specific date, but they said as soon as possible. And I had told them I would discuss with you today. I think maybe something we could do if you guys want to like make a motion to allow me to draft the letter of review based on your comments, which you'll submit to me by next week, just incorporating them. I don't know if that makes sense. If you want like maybe a week to review it.
Sure. Or you could just approve it without me.
Yeah.
Whatever is easier for you, Jackie.
Yeah,
I
let's
thought it was
approve.
very informational, will
Mhm.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do the motion to issue the letter expressing our approval of the plan. If whoever agrees to that.
With
And,
Jackie's sets.
Yeah,
What Jackie said.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
It is very factual, so I don't know,
Yeah, I thought so.
yeah.
you know, what you're going to disprove of, right? It's
I can't imagine.
informational.
It sounds like Jackie had a couple grammatical word choice things.
Yeah,
there.
I already submitted those
Oh,
as
okay.
my own little email several weeks ago, but
Then
so I don't think
yeah,
you need to include that. But
All right,
Right.
I'm gonna, without further ado, I'll just make a motion then that we issue, that we authorize Jackie to issue a letter of review expressing the Conservation Commission's approval of the open space and recreation plan, and that, we authorize her to insert any additional comments based on
Tonight's
the
meeting.
commission's tonight's what we discussed, her
Yeah.
professional purview and the commission's goals.
I'll second that motion.
And how do we vote? Shamrock, aye?
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Maureen Bresnahan, aye.
Ben KLI.
Okay. Next. Enforcement order 2025-04. Didn't we
Oh,
do?
we
We already did both the
Did that.
enforcement orders.
Okay, we did that.
The next
Mhm.
is the regulations, which I suggest we defer to the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything else?
Minutes.
I sent you the link to the conference
Oh, yeah.
materials in case anyone wants to see them. Then we have the meeting minutes for February and March.
I read them. I don't know about anybody else.
I looked over them.
Read
I didn't see
those.
anything. You're muted, Jen.
Sorry, I did not read them. I'm not gonna lie, I did not read them. So I apologize. They were usually wonderful, wonderful works of.
Right, Jen. Okay. All right. So how many of us read them and how many didn't?
Oh, you good doobies.
So I listened to the meeting for March, but I did not attend March.
You
So-
are
Okay.
allowed to vote on the minutes even if you didn't attend. If you
Yes,
read
I
them.
watched the whole recording, so
Yeah.
we're good to go.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
I'll make a
I-
motion that we approve the February 11th, 2026 and March 11th, 2026 meeting minutes as written.
I second that motion.
How do we vote? Shamrock, aye.
Andrew Mulholland,
I'll
aye.
abstain. Sorry, I'm abstaining.
Ben KLI.
Done. All right, anything else?
Nope.
Just my announcements that there's an Earth Day cleanup on May 2nd and celebration. I successfully submitted the MVP and CRMA grant applications with the help of IRWA. And Sustainability Advisory Committee is continuing to host their speaker series at the library. The next topic is composting, and that's tomorrow night, and I will be there.
Nice.
Nice.
That's all. And our next meeting is in a regular schedule. It's going to be on May 20th, 2026.
Jackie's going on vacation, right? Good,
Right.
good. I feel like it now too, after
Let's,
tonight.
yeah,
There you
let's,
go.
before we go any further, we
Yep.
can. Close the
Okay,
meeting.
is meeting adjourned?
Yeah,
I
I'll make a
motion we
motion.
close the motion. I make a motion that we close the meeting.
I'll second that motion.
And how do we vote? Todd Shamrock, aye?
Jen DeCarlo, aye.
Andrew Mulholland, aye.
Brian Bresnahan, aye.
Ben Kella, aye.